can't remember exactly what it was called, but it was a black community that was very successful. They had businesses and they had all these great things. What?
Black Wall Street, Tulsa, yeah.
Yeah, and then what happens? White people come in because they're jealous and they're angry because there's black people and they burn it down, right? So oppression, like all from white people and people above, black people, like has okay, so now they're poor, right? Because every attempt they've ever had to advance themselves and and be a successful part of the society is shut down, right? By these white people. What do you expect? After a while, it's just gonna they're just poor now. They're just poor, and what do you do when you're poor? You commit crime because there's no opportunity, there's no job. What do you do? Right? I mean, look at Dominica or the Dominican Republic and Haiti. There's no opportunity there. There's rampant violence because if your family's safety relies on a gang, you're probably gonna join that gang so your family isn't gonna die and you're gonna be able to feed your family and stuff like that. Same thing in same thing in Palestine and Israel. There's people who when they're these Palestinian areas are shut off from
Well, first of all, I completely agree. Israel should not exist. The Palestinian land is stolen. I'm on the same page with you.
That's good. I agree. That's good. But sorry, I don't want to get worked up because then arguing.
Well,
you can put me put me on the video all worked up and.
Well, to be able to maintain your composure when you strongly disagree with someone is a sign of self-control, which is a good thing. So I disagree with people strongly all the time, but I rarely get angry because it's if I'm wrong, I can learn. If I'm right, I should try to convince them. So either way, there's really no point in getting angry. Yeah. Angry doesn't really solve it. Yeah. But to your point about blacks being exploited, 75% of the slave ships were owned by Jews.
Yeah.
And that's hidden. Our Federal Reserve is owned by Jews. The black community NAACP was started by Jews. So blacks are basically being used against the white majority. It's not whites in America overwhelmingly as far as the treatment. 90% of the slaves from Africa went to South America where they were treated very brutally, Brazil and all that. But 10% came here. If you study a lot of the slave narratives, there's 25,000 of them. They're actually online. There's a book. The slaves themselves back in the 1920s were saying that their experience it wasn't the best, but it wasn't
that's such horseshit.
Well,
I've seen those. That's such horseshit.
That's part of it, and then the second thing is
such horseshit.
The second part of it is that the whole slave narrative. The media is overwhelmingly who controls the media right now. The New York Times is owned by the Sulzbergers. They're Jews. The New York Times, the Washington Post, Jews. Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook, Jew. So everywhere, right and left, it's controlled by the same group. They have specifically stated that they want to put a spirit of resentment in non-whites and a spirit of guilt in whites to elevate, and this is where sports comes in, to elevate black celebrities, to intermarry the races. This is a direct quote from their book. I didn't write this. This is right from their book. So when you wonder why is all of this being sensationalized,
why is all of what? You're changing.
So the sensational. So you ask yourself why, for instance, so when there's a shooting of a black man by a police officer. That's sensationalized, right? Rodney King, George Floyd. Every single time it's blown up this big, huge thing. And yet the statistics are, a black man is 18 times more likely to shoot a police officer than to be shot by one. That's.
Well, you have to go back to the problem I was talking about with they commit more crime, but look what happened to them. Look what where do they come from, and their opportunities for them to advance themselves economically, advance themselves in society have been shut down, and so they turn to violence, they turn to crime because that's all they have. When you grow up in the hood and all of your boys, all of your friends are joining gangs and shit, and they're making money, they're selling, you know what I'm saying?
Well, so
and hold on, and what are you gonna do? Are you gonna you're gonna be a loser, or are you gonna join your friends? You're gonna try and help your family survive. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna go help your mom make some money because she can't find a job. You know what I'm saying? And she has a little kid, a little brother. Are they gonna starve, or are you gonna go join a gang and help your friends? Or, you know what I'm saying? Help your family.
Well, so Benjamin Franklin's one of 9. I'm one of 18. I owned an insurance company. I was making $500,000 a year. We grew up on farm. So the idea that Whites overwhelming, like the Appalachians, there's other areas, they're poor. Asians in China's making like $2 a day. They're poor, and yet crime is.
They're communist countries, like you're talking about China, but they're communists, so
Right.
that's not really accurate when you're in a capitalist market. You're comparing two different societies.
We're not capitalists. China's not getting the
We're a
communist.
free market. We're talking about America, right? We're a free market capitalist society.
Well, so you got so capitalism and communism are two sides of the same coin. So you got the
Same coin, two sides, though, two different sides, right? Heads,
No,
tails.
it's the same thing. So you think that the bankers are against the communists? They're all on the same page. So the Bolshevik Russians, all that money that was stolen, that was from the bankers and it was given to the bankers. Our Federal Reserve was over that, and it's over the capitalism too.
But you're talking about private-owned bankers, right? This
No,
thing.
it's not private.
Or you're
But
talking
here's
about the
the thing,
federal
like-
bank.
It's not, so yeah, it's owned by a certain group, but if you say who they are, they say you're anti-Semite. But that's who owns the Federal Reserve. It's not white people. It's not Muslims. It's not Christians. It's one group that owns the Federal Reserve that's stealing from all
But
of
it's
us.
okay, but now you're bringing race,
Hey, can
ethnicity,
y'all
and
pause real
also
quick
just
so these guys
religious
can walk
belief,
through?
cultural, right?
What's that?
You're saying that they're not white, but if we're looking at their skin color, they are white.
Jews? Well, so have you heard
And
of
then you're the one that said you didn't want to bring up the
Should've
word, but you
recorded
brought
that
up the word
news.
yourself, right?
Right, so Jews, so the question is, have you heard of the Kalergi plan?
I have not.
So the Richard Kuno Kalergi, he's a mixed Japanese Jewish man, and he's one of the founders of the EU. But he came up with the idea, it's a white extermination plan. So whites have gone from 40% of the world's population in 1940, we're down to 10% today. So people think, oh, whites are like in charge. No, we're actually being exterminated right now. Now, if your race was being exterminated, I would oppose that. And I would hope if my race is being exterminated, you would oppose that as well.
No, I would.
Yeah. So that's what we're dealing with right now. America's gone from 90% down to 57%.
When was America established as a white country, though?
So the founders were very clear in the Constitution. They said, and they were all white, they said that this Constitution is created for ourselves and our posterity, meaning their children. So they're white children. That's what they were saying. So we're going to
Can you give me
treat.
a direct quote where it says ourselves.
I'll show it
or
is in the
man?
if you have an email or something, and I'll
So
send it.
here's also part of that is like white people, like Irish people weren't seen as white.
Sure,
back
I'm
then.
Italian.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Italians,
Exactly.
Irish people. So this isn't your country either. Then this is
Well-
my country. This isn't his country. This is his country.
Well, so if you look at the founders, so first of all, the book that the founders quoted the most, anyone know which book that was?
And are you saying just because they said that in the past that we can't, like, we don't have the train to learn and grow
yeah,
and change
exactly.
from our
I
own
mean, like
ideas?
the Constitution.
Well, we gotta ask ourselves, like, objective statistics from 1960 to today, how has America improved?
Well, also you have to look at a lot of
Crime,
different things.
poverty, how has America improved?
Yeah, exactly.
You also got to think about all the external things that
you
have
have
caused
to
this.
context.
Honestly, the context that you're building at that skin color and that the extermination of white, when not necessarily that. It could also be the fact that most black people don't have the opportunities that other people have, right? Like, for example, like most people in prison are those that are black, and why? It's because of the cultural background that they're in, Section 9 housing, et cetera, et cetera. Coming from California, you can see that predominantly, especially where I grew up in South Stockton, where it's a lot of like just small communities that have received no help, no aid, no youth sports, nothing, like no social public goods that help them bring themselves up, bring that community up. So what they turn into gang violence and just.
So yeah, and I grew up in Vallejo, the most diverse city in California, probably close by. So 25% white, black, Asian, Latino, and I got friends among all the races. I got, like, the police chief of Vallejo was black. His sister, I probably better not say this on video, but the same thing that you guys are saying, like, there's people in all communities who know this stuff. Now, there's two arguments. One argument says that people are accountable for what they do, no matter what environment that you come from. You're not justified in committing violent crimes, rapes, and murders. The other one says, oh, because of slavery and mistreatment, that explains why this violent stuff is happening. Now, I'm of the opinion that every human, if you're in America, you have to be accountable. You have to be responsible. Otherwise, maybe you don't belong here. If stuff from the past, and there's other groups, like you mentioned the Japanese. The Japanese were mistreated, but I don't see them. They don't have crime issues and all this. So we have to hold everybody equally accountable. And as far as the Jews over history, who's been mistreated more than them? And now that's another topic, because that's a large subject that has to be gone into.
Yeah.
But ultimately, right now, what we're dealing with is our media is controlled. Facebook, social media, all of that, newspapers, radio, television, it's all, you might as well call it there's one man said if you have television in your house, you have a Jew living with you, because they control everything on it. NBC, ABC, Fox, CBS, it's all controlled by the movie studios. And then if you say this stuff, they're like, oh, you want to kill all Jews. How about I just don't want you stealing from me, and I don't want you like lying about me. That's for starters. I think that's a pretty easy, simple request that we probably all could agree with. So the other thing is, in the black community in 1940, 10% of black children were born out of wedlock. Now it's 75%. So no matter where you come from racially, if you're raised without a father, you are going to be disadvantaged. It's not to say that you cannot succeed. You can succeed, but it's going to be more difficult for you. Single mother, you go to the local jail, the two factors that almost all your criminals have in common: illegitimacy, raised without a father, and illiteracy, functionally illiterate. They do not read. That's the main factors that the men in this country, if we were in charge, and that's the other aspect is just feminism, because women are they're trained to rebel, don't obey your husband, don't have kids, don't marry, don't have children. And so like it's right now our birth rate is like 1.7, replacement is 2.
It's also it's also a lot. I guess that context behind that with the economy and just like the facts, like, you know what I'm saying?
Housing.
Well,
we also have
men-
housing issues. You also got to think about like.
Yeah, like hold on, let me go. So like, you're talking about like, so like when you're talking about like the fact that like you said the Jews. I'm not gonna say the Jews because I'm not racist. And I'm gonna say like the.
And not all Jews, let me be clear, not all
Yeah,
Jews.
so what I'm gonna say, I'm gonna say
Talmudic
rich people.
Jews,
I'm gonna say rich people. I'm gonna say that rich people and people who are in government, like Donald Trump, and people like that who are taking money, like who are cutting Medicaid and Medicare for people who are, you know, the bottom 20% and giving tax breaks to top 1%, right? So like instead of like, you know, pointing fingers and saying like black people are like bad, like why don't you like?
No.
Hold on.
And not black people. So I think the corporate stuff is far worse than anything blacks are doing. I couldn't completely agree with you. I'm not corporate welfare and all that.
Yeah, but hold on. Let me see. So instead of like being racist and being divisive, say like, hey, these are my brothers. These are my these poor people. These like the 99% are my. You know what I'm saying? That's me. That's us. That's the people. Like, and then we can, you know, and vote and do all those things politically to get like to bring each other up instead of be divisive and be hateful and do other stuff.
Well, it's like Michael Crichton, who wrote Jurassic Park. He said that if you don't know your history, you don't know anything. You're like a bird that doesn't know it's or a leaf that doesn't know it's attached to
So
a tree.
like back in the 60s when we were doing really well, like what was our tax on the top 1%? It was 80%. We were taxing the top 1%, 80%. The middle class was the biggest it's ever been, right? People were doing well economically, right?
Well,
You know,
no, so Eisenhower, I think he had like 70, 80%. You're
Yeah.
right, around that time. But the income tax started in 1913. It was supposed to be temporary.
Yeah,
It's not
It wasn't
temporary.
income tax though, because most like rich people don't have like an income, right?
Right. So it was supposed to be like a small amount. It was supposed to go away. We weren't even supposed to have a standing army. That came after World War I too. If you study the chain of events, Federal Reserve income tax, 17th Amendment, 1913. Boom, 1914, World War I starts. It was all set up.
Yeah, I've seen
1917, the Bolshevik Revolution, richest man in the world is killed, the Tsar of Russia. So this is all, it's all related. And once you see the group that's behind all this.
Also, you know, the Tsar of Russia was, you know, like letting his people starve to death and like.
No, so, wait, what is it?
Well, he
anything on
was.
the
I mean,
scale
his
of-
people were starving to death. Like,
Well, 40 million dead, murdered, is that worth people starving to death? That's what they say.
I mean, it's a civil war.
Well, so, and the other thing is, Lenin, or Trotsky, his real name is Lev Bronstein. And of the leading 400 Bolsheviks in Russia, 300 were Jewish, when they made up 2% of the population. Now, how is that not overrepresentation? And we're not told any of this. But you look around in America today, you got the same issue. Our media, everything is controlled by the same small group. I've learned most of this from other Jews who tell on their fellow Jews. So I'm not like anti-Semitic, I don't hate all Jews. It's just, if you're involved in wrongdoing, and I don't care if you're white, black, Asian, Jewish, or whatever, I oppose you. And I shouldn't be called racist or anti-Semitic because I have a problem with the crimes that you're committing as a group. I shouldn't be called a white supremacist because I tell something that someone who's not white doesn't like, even if it's true. So I'm not about like elevating whites above all races. I'm about, if no one has a problem with Africa being all black, or China being all Chinese, or Japan being all Japanese, then what is there a problem with whites having their own culture and nation as well? Because if you look and see what was the agenda and goal behind bringing...
There's already nations like that.
Yeah.
You can go to Sweden, you go to Russia,
all
you
of
go
them are under attack. Sweden is under attack. Every single
Denmark,
white...
but exactly.
They're all
you're
under
talking-
attack.
But they already exist, right?
Well, every
Well,
single
like,
one.
here's the
they
thing,
see
it's like
who's-
America, these came from travelers. We took this land from natives, first of all, first and foremost. Columbus Day was just Monday, so.
Right, but so
you're talking about like stolen land and stolen this and that.
Well,
If
so-
anything, if we're really being honest, what we should be talking about is how natives are at least represented in their own land.
Well,
right?
so the habits of the natives, like Crazy Horse, his monument, I passed it on my way up here. It's going to be the biggest monument when it's done. It's been being built for like 80 years. Amazing man. I mean, the Sioux Indians, they had amazing cultures. But the thing is, we can't apply our laws today. Like, you buy a house. That's your house. Well, it's still not your house because you have to pay property tax, but it's your property. There was no like, okay, this is Crazy Horse's land, this is Sitting Bull's land. None of that existed. So how do you steal land when they don't have the land laws that we have right now? So I don't think they should have been.
Same with the Constitution that you mentioned before then. So your arguments are contradicting themselves right now. You're saying that in the past in the Constitution we wrote this about how it's white kids and their children, but now you're saying since we didn't have those land taxes or land laws back then, that now that we've established them, it's a whole different game,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Well, first,
But we gotta think about like the moralness of this, right? If you're a religious person, I'm Christian, the morality of it, we did them wrong. And it's up to us, since Jesus forgave us, that we need to forgive ourselves and forgive those who oppose us, right?
right. Well, so with that, if you look and see what was happening with the Indians long before whites came in blacks in Africa, long before whites came, the blacks sold their own into slavery. That was going on long before whites got on the scene. And Native Americans, genocide, slavery, when Cortez came against the Aztecs, the other tribes joined with Cortez because they were tired of their people being eaten and sacrificed. They didn't want it happening anymore.
So that shows that like 90% of like the other tribes were like not the bad thing that you're trying to like say they were.
Right, there was good ones, and the other thing is
Most
too,
of them were. Most of them
you
were. That's what I'm
consider-
saying.
well,
Like,
you
there was like
also-
a pressing force. That's what like
Well,
they
you
were fighting
consider-
against that with.
Well, you consider what would have happened to the Indians if they had conquered their own. They would have been genocided and enslaved. There would be no reservations. They would have been gone. They have done it. They've exterminated. Entire Indian tribes have been exterminated.
Yeah, these like tribes that you're talking about are not like big though. They're not like millions of people. It's like a tribe. It's like 20, 30 people. You know what I'm saying? It's not like.
Well, our population back then was far. I mean, we're dealing with 350 million today. I think it was like 6 million Indians maybe when Columbus discovered America. So vastly smaller numbers
there
of people.
was like in America there were like settled. There was like mountain tribes. There was like trade. There was like community. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's not like these were all just Plains Indians. That's a big like misconception that people have. Like, they weren't all just like the Western Indians that you like that are in the movies and shit. Like, there was like, so you know like who the Saxons were in like the Celts.
Anglo-Saxons, yeah.
Yeah, not Anglo-Saxons, like the
Saxons.
Saxons like in Britannia and like in Gaul, like during their like Roman times, and like the advancement was like in like the Mississippi area, Missouri area, like of like the mountain tribes of the Native Americans, like technologically we're very close to like those people. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's not like they're like just like savages and like, but like people like think about like Rome too, like they killed a lot of people, they did a lot of fucked up things, like. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not. It's just like you have to think about like where they were technologically and where they were like culturally.
So I'm Italian.
like-
I am from Rome. But the thing is, if you look at world history, go from the very start. Egypt, Babylon, Assyria, Persia, Greece, Rome. Look at all the empires. Portugal. They were overwhelmingly white. And what you'll notice is when they conquered, just like America today, they have an influx of people who don't have, like Alexander. Alexander went all over, tried to spread Greek traditions all over, and then what happens, it fell apart really quick after he died at 33.
Well, actually, it fell apart a lot because he like his like Greek commanders and stuff were like not fucking with the fact that he was becoming more Assyrian. He was like having Assyrian people around him in Persian, yeah, and like all these like so that's also part of it.
Yeah,
And he was and also Alexander was gay, so.
that's what they say. There's a lot of evidence that contradicts that from his time period. So they say that his teacher was Aristotle, and if you look at what Aristotle, Plato, and Socrates, it was not this overwhelming like acceptance of homosexuality. In Sparta, you're right, but what's happened is, so there's a book called After the Ball. It's now like $500, but I read it like 15 years ago and it was $10. And it explains how homosexuality is going to be normalized. And part of it was going back over history and making it look like all the animals are gay and all the historical figures are gay. Abraham Lincoln was gay and a vampire. I mean, it never ends. Like, they just go on and on and on. And when you read the primary people from that time period, you're like, wait a minute, those people, they, like America from 1776 to like 1960, the sexual revolution, there were extremely severe laws against homosexuality. And all sex outside of marriage, in every single society, you could study J.D. Unwin, sex outside of marriage has ruined every single culture, and it's ruining us right now. You cannot have a successful culture and have that. You just can't. Matter of fact, when the natives were conquered, the Europeans overwhelmingly confined sex in heterosexual marriage, which is why the Europeans had the technology to get on boats and come over here with gunpowder, horses, and armor, and the natives did not have that technology, because technology is directly linked to sexual self-control. It's totally directly linked. Now, I know you might argue that
because there's no gunpowder in like in the Americas, and there's
you gotta think about resources. That's why there's trade.
and like also like so a big thing with like advancement and like for the Native Americans and like why Europe and those areas were able to advance much faster is like you have to think about like longitude and latitude. It's so much easier to trade this way than it is to trade this way, because you have to like if you're trying to like trade from like I was talking about like the Missouri, Mississippi like mountain tribes, you know what I'm saying? Like to go down, like to travel down to like the Aztecs, the Mayans, they like think about like the length of the Rocky Mountains. It's like entirely just mountains that they have to go through. Where you like if you're going this way, all you have to do is cross through, and then you're good. You know what I'm saying? So like to be able to get to China from Rome, it was so much easier. And so like you can like have this interchange of ideas and like resources, and be able to use these people from China who are so many miles away, so many like thousands of miles away, as like and you know what I'm saying, like be able to have that interchange of everything where you can't do that in America. So it's not. I think that's like.
Just to add one more thing, you said I'm a computer science major, so I disagree with sexual control is what drives technology. It's competition. That's first and foremost competition.
But why do men compete? We compete for resources to do what?
You think it's mating, but it's really not mating for the most part. For most of it, it's just financial stability, and that's what it was to begin with. Not only to make our life more efficient, but also when you create something new, something that is necessary, you're gonna have demand. You're gonna have consumers that need that product. So that's where it really begins.
Yeah,
that's why when you take
I'm sorry, I'm
economics.
Ryan. Your name is
Andy Bundy.
what is it?
Andy Bundy.
Andy?
Yeah.
And
Jose.
Okay, pleasure to meet you all. But yeah, it's the resources. You're right. There is a competition for resources, but overwhelmingly, if you read Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, he said, like us men, we'd be living in caves. We don't really care if it wasn't for women and impressing them. That's typically why you're average. There's men who do it just because, but your average man who wants to reproduce, you do not attract women unless you have resources. That's just the simple fact. Women don't want to go around with jobless losers. Very rarely does that happen. So that's why most men are trying to get resources, because we're trying to better ourselves and look good to the opposite sex, to reproduce and have children. That is what the bottom underlying thing.
Okay, but that also contradicts what you're saying though, because if we were driven to technologically advance by having resources, or we were driven to technologically advance for women, the people who are having sex, like whatever you're saying, like sex outside of marriage, wouldn't they be like more driven?
Well, so what this is based on is Sigmund Freud. He's Jewish. His study was basically that you can't repress sexuality, or it's dangerous to the individual and the society. That was his basic thing. So J.D. Unwin came along, who was one of his students, and he said, I agree with that. I'm going to go research it. So he started sitting down and researching and saying, is it possible? How are these cultures done when they confine sex in heterosexual marriage? So he studied all of them. He had a very thorough study. He has a book, it's on Amazon, it's called Sex and Culture, and he found that the 86 greatest societies in human history, so he looked at the Aztecs, the Sioux, the Babylonians, the Persians, all of them, and after he was done, he was like, the exact opposite of what I went into this believing is true. So I believe that repressing your sexuality is harmful. In reality, not repressing your sexuality is harmful, because that energy that it takes to build up your civilization comes from repressing your sexuality. There's no disputing that. If you look back through, even in America, look at like in 1960, the rape rate in America was 9 per 100,000. As we're talking, it's unofficially 100 per 100,000, so it's gone up 10 times. Unofficially, officially, it's 40 per 100,000. Now you ask, why is there that discrepancy? It's because police are cooking the books to make politicians look better. That's number one. And number two is men who view pornography, which if you've met a man who has not viewed pornography, I'd like to meet him. Men who view pornography are less likely to believe that a woman who has been raped actually has been raped. So women are less likely to report it because they don't think that men are going to take it seriously.
Okay, but also back then, you don't think that people who weren't reporting rape?
I don't
think
because
because
that's not true. That is totally not true. That is the narrative they give to
Well,
try
no,
to.
but hold on, like for real, like think about like what like the woman's role was. Like I mean, I'm talking about like married, like in a family. Like you don't think that
Yeah,
like
but talking back to the 60s, I mean, women it's been a patriarchal society, which is
Which throughout world history, that patriarchal societies always work. You can't tell me one successful society that was matriarchal. It doesn't work.
well, because there hasn't been one, but like
It won't
doesn't
work.
matter. It doesn't
It
matter.
doesn't work.
It doesn't matter. That's not what we're talking about. That's not what we're
We're
talking
just
about.
saying that, like-
we're talking about the fact that like women, they probably didn't have the voice to be like, yeah, I got raped, and like by somebody, and the people who like those people are gonna be like, hey, don't say that, otherwise we're gonna affect you poorly. We're gonna do something that's gonna affect your life poorly, or you're never gonna be able to like live your life because you can't, like, you hurt this person, you made them go to jail or whatever. They're gonna be like, no, you didn't do that. You didn't rape you. You liked it. Because that's a big thing. That's a big thing.
So an anecdote will illustrate this. So the ADL, Anti-Defamation League, which is a totally fraudulent society, it's a fraudulent group, started in 1913. Leo Frank, a Jewish owner of a pencil factory in Atlanta, had a 13-year-old employee, Mary Fagan, who went to go collect her paycheck and was raped and murdered. And the ADL was started to defend Leo Frank. So they actually did. The governor of the state got Leo Frank off. And what eventually happened was the men of Georgia, this would never happen today, but they knew that it was bogus, that he had actually done it. He tried to blame two innocent black watchmen, which they were both innocent. Now, you know they had to be innocent. If back in 1913 Georgia, the men were like, oh, these people were innocent. He did it. So they basically took him out of jail and lynched him. Now, where today, when a man lynches and rapes a little girl, where does he get, like, the men, where do the men deal with him? That, like, never happens. So back then, that is what happened. So when you say it didn't get
I mean,
reported,
that's one.
Men dealt with
yeah,
it.
like you said, it's anecdotal evidence. It's not statistical.
sure,
it's not
but
empirical
if you
data.
look across the board, what happened, a lot of the lynchings, so we always hear about lynchings and all this, but what we don't hear is that very close to half, if not more, was lynchings of whites who are committing serious crimes. In the Old West, whites were routinely lynched. In the
but like, okay, we're talking about two different things. We're talking about black people getting lynched for no reason, and white people who like did fucked up things getting lynched.
Well, and we're also ignoring the fact, like if you saw, oh, this person was lynched, but if you look into the background of a lot of these, you got to look into, so some of them were unjustified, that's absolutely correct. But like, let's put it in context. I think like, I don't know, 1,000 were lynched in the history of America, which is wrong, but 20 million black babies have been aborted in abortion clinics.
Yeah,
So
I don't
20
agree
million,
with that, but
1,000,
that's
I'm
not
kind
the
of.
same. That's not the same thing.
Yeah, that's
I
not
think
the
it's
same
worse
argument.
actually. I think abortion is actually, because this is at least like if you're lynched, you have a chance to fight back. Like a child has nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pro-life. I'm Catholic. I don't believe in abortion should be a thing, but like. You're
And, like,
just
every
saying
year-
a big number. You're just saying a big number so you can like make this other number look smaller.
There's another aspect too, and it's kind of a tangent, but I think it's necessary. So 38,000 or so murders happen every year. 95% are committed by men. Men are the majority of your murders. 1 million abortions happen every year, and 98% are by women. So, when
How does a man abort a baby? How does that work?
no, I said by women.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the 2%, there's 2% unaccounted for.
98%
Is that like miscarriages? Or?
Well, so like men there are pimps that will like at gunpoint force the woman to. Yeah, I mean it's a minority, but it does happen. The vast majority are initiated by it. And 1960, pornography, birth control, abortion, and homosexuality were all illegal. That needs to be restored. That's this whole race issue. It'll sort itself out when you get the moral issues right too. But this is crucial because it needs a light needs to be shone
Yeah,
upon it.
the moral issue would be like things like racism, like
So-
like you know what a food desert is?
Yeah, I'm familiar with it.
Okay.
Well, but so you look
things
at
like
the
a food
crime rates
desert-
in those areas.
Yeah, because the food deserts, like people can't buy houses, they can't find a job, they can't buy food because there's not a grocery store, right? No opportunity.
Well, so, yeah.
Think about mental health. Like, what are your stances on mental health? Like, do you think it's an actual thing? Do you think depression, anxiety are actual things? Do you think people get angry because they lack food and nutrition?
So
I'm a wrestler who cuts weight, so I know that when I don't eat, I get really angry. So if we're starving these people, if these people don't have opportunities, people feel like they're going nowhere. What are the state of their mental being, right?
Well, so with mental health, I think Freud was a fraud, and he's the father of psychiatry. This whole mental health, I think it's a clever end around. Lincoln said, when I do good, I feel good. When I do bad, I feel bad. And that's been my experience. Maybe it's yours. My thing is, the worst that I feel is not when other people mistreat me. It's when I do something that I knew was wrong. Because if we're really honest about it, there's only 3 things that any of us control. It has nothing to do with other people. It's my thoughts, my words, and my actions. Other than that, you can't really control anything. So like I'm out here, I'm spreading information, but I can't change anybody else's mind. I could give you information and you might choose to change your mind, but I can't force you. And like a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. So if you have an opinion, and you know, when I was in the 6th grade, I had a huge problem with this. I had opinions and I would become angry when people did not agree with my opinions, but I couldn't lay out the reasons why they should change their minds to agree with me. Yeah. I should be able to logically lay out the facts, understand their viewpoint, and if what you have is the truth, you should be able to take the most fierce criticism and be able to handle it and still be standing after the dust is settled. And that's what, you know, that's what this is all about. It's like but we don't have this on social media, in the public square. There's none of this is not allowed. I'm forced at, I've been arrested 7 times, and just for like saying this stuff in public. And there are people who...
What you're saying can be viewed as racism. Do you believe that this can be viewed as racism?
So 1900, the word racism, Nazi, sexist, all that stuff didn't exist.
And I also add that, do you agree with this wholeheartedly? Like, is this your viewpoint? Like, all bullet points are your viewpoint?
So, if you look and see who was behind...
So you agree with gerrymandering? Racial profiling that just recently happened?
No. So there's more to it than that. So the gerrymandering and the race profiling. So I think everyone should be judged equally. But see, it's not white in the last 60 years.
You said everybody should be judged equally, but you're judging one group for all of our problems, right? You had I just see a contradiction in your mentality from what you're just telling me to now.
I didn't mention any race that is a problem.
No. This is from your speech. I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about how you're mentioning the Jews, right? And now I'm reading your stance, and it's very similar, right? Jews.
Well, do we agree that the Jews own the Federal Reserve? Have you researched the Federal Reserve's history?
Yes, I have, and I do agree that they hold a lot of power with
private
the federal
owners. If they were private owners.
And I agree, but that is something that is given to them due to the laws of America, right? They have that right? Well, so if you're gonna attack a group, you gotta, and let's be honest, they control a lot of it because lobbying, etc. Money controls a lot of our politics nowadays. So I could see where you come from. However, if your stance previously is that mental illness is a real thing, that we're forced to control what we can't control, but you're shifting that blame onto others, you're repeating the same mistake that you're trying to change.
Well, so I don't advocate, like Martin Luther wrote The Jews and Their Lies. He said you burn down all the synagogues. I'm not saying that. But this
I'm not saying you are.
Yeah, and the other thing is...
there's a contradiction in argument. Like, your argument's eerily similar to what they're doing. Control the narrative, control the information, and you're throwing numbers without any... Like, there's no links, there's no sources, there's only an email.
And I have 1,000 books on there. So everything that I'm telling you, these books are not in the libraries, they're not on Amazon, they're hidden. You're not going to come across... If I did not come here right now, a lot of you would have went to the rest of your lives without even hearing any of this. I'm coming here...
I have heard this shit. It's just racist.
Well,
it's just bullshit. Here's my biggest question. How does America not being 90% white affect the Federal Reserve being owned by Jews? How does it affect the fact that, again, the extreme disproportional wealth gap? How does it affect any of those things?
Well, there is extremely disproportional wealth gap.
Yeah, and how does
the people who print out, we're $200 trillion in debt, and we're all being forced to pay an income tax, which is slavery. That's taxation is theft. So, and it doesn't matter what race you are. We're all being. So for me, I'm like, the race issue is somewhat important, but once the Jewish control of media and money is over, these race issues will take care of themselves. I'm convinced of that. But if I came here and said the Jews are the problem, you guys would be, oh, he's a racist, anti-Semite, Nazi, he wants to kill all the Jews in the Holocaust, and nobody would listen to me. And that's not what I believe. I don't believe any of that stuff.
But what it looks like to me is that these two are engagement bait, since your argument is eerily similar, and there's nothing wrong with engagement bait, only because what you're trying to do is stir out thoughts and ideas, which is, I commend. That's really great that you're trying to do this. I feel like you're coming around the wrong way, saying that, oh, because of these problems, this race issue will fix itself off and this and that. Whereas, why not as a Christian, as a collective, as a whole, as a free society, you know, God gave us free will, gave us freedom, and then this land lets us exercise that freedom. You know, why don't we praise the great qualities and bring that quality up rather than shift the blame to a certain group or shift the blame to, oh, it's the race is what's causing these issues.
Well, you know,
or it's these other external conflicts that is creating a race issue, right?
And I hear you. So if we consider, if this was just like accidental or just organically happened, that would be one thing. But if it's being aggressively pushed by one group with evil motives towards one race, then I think we need to acknowledge that. And if you look who's behind immigration, there's one group that's behind immigration always, on both sides. They'll be for immigration, they'll be against immigration, but it's the same group. And it's like, so we have to understand that there are people, like there's a saying, like real eyes, real lies, real lies. And its ability to look into this, we have to be able to look into this and understand what's really going on behind the shadows, because there's more than meets the eye. I'm here to, and I'm glad, I thank all of you who are listening, and because I know this is radically different from what a lot of you have heard in your lives. And of course, you're right, I'm on Facebook. You normally don't see this stuff because they're like hate speech and it's like banned. So if you never come across a lot of this stuff, I'm banned on Facebook. I've been banned for 10 years. You're not gonna hear anything from me on Facebook. Yeah. On YouTube, I'm banned on Twitter. Your Dickinson post bans me. I've been kicked out of your city council meeting by the police. It's like, so when I tell these things, I was like, I'm not gonna be quiet. Yeah. It's the truth, you can't really defeat it. So it's like, people disagree and that's fine. And if people have rational reasons, maybe I do change my mind and maybe I change your mind. But the ability that we can come, exchange ideas, and I commend you, because there's a lot of people who are 40s, 50s, and 60s that cannot calmly and coolly stand there and discuss ideas with people that they strongly disagree with. So I strongly commend the fact that you can do that. I think that's a step. We are not going to heal in America until more people can exercise patience and self-control. And which one of the virtues is patience. You got to be able to. Yeah. Some people are going to disagree from you, and you can't just say, "Oh, that person's a racist." I'm not talking about. Like the whole in 1828 in the dictionary, the word racist didn't exist. Nazi, all this stuff didn't even exist. People didn't think that way.
Because either it didn't happen or they didn't open their eyes to realize the hate that was in this world, right?
Right. So I asked.
And then I have one more question. What is your political belief here in America? Are you a Democrat or are you a conservative?
So I was talking with a few others before, and I was telling them, like, it's two wings of the same bird. So I voted for Obama in 08, I voted for Trump in 2016, but at the end of the day, the Federal Reserve, both parties are heavily funded by the same group of billionaires, and it's the same group. Like Trump's in Israel right now, meeting with Miriam Adelson, Jew, got the money from Las Vegas. The Democrat Party, Bloomberg, he actually ran for the president. Jew. I mean, their heaviest funder is Mark Zuckerberg. So both parties, it's a big game. Like it's the Hegelian dialectic. It's thesis, antithesis, synthesis. You think they're fighting, but they're all moving in the same direction. It's not. It's all theater. Trump and Reagan are actors. They are not, like, we are not to be taking these people seriously. And the same with the Republicans, but they're all controlled. It's all theater. Ooh, look at this. Ooh, look at that. Ooh.
I only said it to you said I'd never hear this, but all I hear from, like, these arguments are all, like, right-sized radicals, like, oh, it's the Israel. The reason why Charlie Kirk got shot is because his stance on Israel, this and that, Jews this, Jews that. So the fact that he said I've never listened to this before, I'm going to say it's a lie because I have heard about it before. And it seems more like conspiracies than actual, like, empirical data. I will take a look at this and see if, there is, like, data in here that I can trust, but for right now, that's what it seems like to me. It's just a big whole conspiracy. And I'm not saying there isn't any truth to the fact that Jews have the holding of power. You see that if you take an economic course, if you understand how wealth works and how power works and how trade works, then yeah, you can see that there is a clear, like, unfair play. However, like I'm saying, your end argument that the whole why can't America, Europe, Canada, Australia be 9% why can't this and that, it all just seems like you were mentioning theatrics, right? So a bigger problem, whether it is to gain funds from posting these videos or whatnot.
I don't get money for this, but the thing is, my end thing is this, that we could understand, so people of other races are welcome to stay here, but the thing is, this country was founded on a foundation. The founders quoted the Bible more than any other book, and the founders were very well versed in names that we're not taught about in history today. Cicero, Cato, Plutarch, Pericles, Greece and Rome, we're not taught anything about that. So if people are willing to say, and for whatever reason, I mean, your experience, do you know men who are not white who find it a priority to learn about Greece and Rome? Because I don't know those men in America. Okay, if you do, you know that you're rare, though.
I also feel like you don't know.
No, what you're talking about is stoicism. It's actually a really huge trend here in young adults now.
Good.
When it comes with mentality and discipline, you're talking about repressing your sexual desires and emotions. That all comes with discipline. I feel like your argument right now is race-based, and it's a whole other argument
It's
where
not
the
to put
simplicity
down-
of it
it's not
is
put down on the races,
discipline.
it's just-
No, I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying the simplicity of your argument is just discipline and moral compass, rather than turning into a race thing, rather than turning into something else. We can focus on your bigger agenda, which might be the fact that Jews have this huge control and power, right? And that can be something we can look at, and as a nation and multiple nations, the UN can actively fight against, because they fund wars, and that's not right. If we look at Israel and Palestine, that's not right, right?
I mean, everything like World War I, Lusitania was rigged. Pearl Harbor for World War II was rigged. Gulf of Tonkin for Vietnam was rigged. 9/11 was rigged by the same group every time. And I mean, after a while, I mean, think about it. If you had a child and your child got kicked out of school 109 times, and you're like, why are you discriminating against my kid? You must be racist. And they're like, your kid is a problem child. Like, your kid keeps acting up and causing problems. Well, there's no race and there's no religion that's been kicked out of countries 109 times except for one. And if you start looking into the Talmud says that you, me, and everyone in here who's not a Jew is an animal and a beast. The only reason why we look like a human is so that we can serve and not look like animals. It's the only reason. That's what it says. And if you're a woman and you're not a Jew, you're a whore and a prostitute. I'm quoting from their Talmud. I'm not telling you my own opinion. And so I would think that's pretty hateful. I don't say anything like that about other races. So you don't see the Talmud in your school. I guarantee you if I look around, I probably won't find one. There's none in the library. Anything criticism is blocked on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter. So of course you don't hear this stuff. And then I come along and they're like, oh, that racist anti-Semite wants to kill all Jews. I don't want to harm anybody.
Our problem it was not with I didn't Trey didn't text me to come here and talk to you because of the Jews. It was talking about why is there a problem with America, Europe, Canada, Australia remaining 90% white when we're not. So that means we would have to either have a mass exodus or a lot of colored people leave. And also hold on. I've been sitting on this for a while, and so that's messed up. That'd be racist because it'd be colored people leaving, making them leave. That's actually a form of, you guessed it, genocide. But so my other thing is with the Jewish is AIPAC and Israel does absolutely have a massive control over our country and its politics, and things like the extreme wealth gap and all those things are definitely are influenced by that. I would say that saying things like bringing race into it, because I don't say it's not the, I would say that you can't say it's the Jews when you can say it's rich people, and you don't have to say you don't have to bring in black people, you don't have to bring in all these other things that are hateful and wrong, and you have to talk about other contexts with slavery in the past, and do you know what I'm saying, and it's hateful, and it's divisive more than anything, because you just don't have to do that, because you're you know what I'm saying.
So the problem is, you have to consider Propaganda was a book written by Edward Bernays, who's Sigmund Freud's nephew, Jewish, and he described how you could use propaganda to influence the minds of the masses to think a certain way. So there's been a steady push for over 100 years, long before any of us were born, to create a sense of resentment in non-whites toward whites and a sense of guilt in whites. That's been going on for a long time. And you'd have to be blind if you don't see that in the media, because since 1965,
I wouldn't say all media. I'd say for example, you're saying that I could see it from CNN, since it's Democratic, they'll try to use their diverse following to spread that propaganda. Fox News would probably twist another way. You're saying media as a whole, but media honestly is also really divisive on both ends. Right?
Well, so Fox News, the guy who started FUCHS, he's a Jew. ABC, CBS, NBC, all started by Jews. So when you look at, even if it wasn't started by a Jew, you find out the money who's controlling it, and it's the same group. So, I mean, it's there's this Latin saying, cui bono, follow the money, who benefits? When you start following the money on everything, these influencers who are on everywhere, who paid Charlie Kirk to go to college? I can't go to college campuses and give speeches and talk like Charlie Kirk. Who's paying Charlie Kirk? And then we find out who's paying Charlie Kirk. Who's paying Candace Owens? How do they come up in your algorithms every time you go on social media? All these people, how do they come into your algorithms? Who are the
Candace Owens? But she has been really against Israel and really against.
But the thing is, Lenin said the best way to destroy our opposition is to control it. So it's very subtle. They will take somebody, have them criticize the Jews, and still be paying them, because as long as they control the leader, they don't have nothing to fear from the movement. So it's a very devious, it's layer after layer after layer of deceit. And it's really difficult to see through, because it's how do you see through all this? But most of it is aimed at creating hostility towards whites, which is really big in America right now. And so I don't have hostility towards others, and others are free to stay here and prosper and all that. But at the end of the day, there needs to be a recognition of the foundation that this nation was founded upon. The word racism, like I said before, the word Loxism means a hatred of whites. We never hear that word. I've never seen the word Loxism on Facebook ever. I've never seen
I
it
hear
in the...
Locke, I hear John Locke's.
No, Loxism.
How do you spell it?
Loxism, which is a hatred of white people. So John Locke, that's different. Loxism is the hatred of white people.
I mean, yeah, just because you don't hear a word doesn't mean you don't hear a word.
Well, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff aimed at whites, and it's like, oh, that's perfectly okay. But if a white person, anything towards black, oh, racism. Oh, towards Jews, oh, anti-Semitism. But Loxism is okay.
It's so different now. Like, I'm coming from California. Like, I could maybe if you're speaking California, I'd see that because like the minorities, whites over there, especially in my hometown. Out here though, like. There's not really a hatred towards white people or anything like that.
I went to school, the word whitey, honky, and cracker were common, and I was a minority. And the word, the N-word, if you said that word, oh, that was gonna be a problem. So
you couldn't say either.
That carries power, though. That's like the thing. Is like when has like a black when has a black person when have black people consistently held power over white people ever and like oppressed them?
There's two countries in world history that were run by whites and that were taken over by blacks.
Yeah, South America.
No.
Or South Africa, right? With like apartheid.
Maybe there's two other ones though.
Okay.
So Haiti, Britain in Napoleonic Wars, and 40,000 whites were killed.
Yeah, because that's a slave revolt. Slave revolt. Yes, it was.
Yeah, there's
That's a slave
colonization.
revolt.
Well, I mean, so and then Liberia.
Yeah,
was,
Liberia.
But
Sent black people over there.
so both of those countries that for the past 200 years have, without white influence at all, what have they done?
What have we done?
What
has
has
America done?
Like, what would Puerto Rico do if it didn't have American like support? Like, they're just
What
tiny
has-
islands with no natural resources. What are they supposed to do? Like, what are they like? How are they like? Do you know what I'm saying?
So a lot of this.
Now let's tackle your argument. You're talking about, like we're talking about a different country. You're talking about India. What has India done? Have you seen like their healthcare? Have you seen how they make food? Have you seen like the state that the environment is in? Have you looked at China? China, like those people don't really have human rights, right? They kind of are controlled by their government, communist
Our government
government.
runs China. It's hard to believe, but it's true.
No, it doesn't. China runs our government. Made in China. You could check your clothes. It's all made in China.
So if you follow.
And then 90% Japanese. Like the only country that is prospering right now, in my opinion, out of all these is Japan with their technological advancements.
Right. Well, so,
And you can see it right there on his phone, on our phone, his keys.
So
You know what I mean?
the problem is all, like this American imperialism. It's not American imperialism. What it is it's one group that has led to the 1948 formation of Israel, the 1948 establishment of Mao in communist China. This started like the Sassoons introduced opium in China in the 1800s, which
The whites introduced crack to the blacks and.
no. The biggest gangsters.
Wait, hold on. Do you know what Iraq Contra is?
I do. Yeah.
Okay, so you know Ollie North, and like how
So
he was,
Reagan-
like, how they were like the CIA was importing heroin
Reagan
and
was backed
cocaine
by
into.
the mob. The mob's Jewish. Meyer Lansky, the biggest gangster, he's Jewish. I mean, you got
Okay, yeah, but like I'm still saying, like.
Las Vegas, Bugsy Siegel, he's Jewish. When you start looking at the names, we're not dealing with whites here.
All you've done is
No, I mean the biggest.
Entire conversation, you just like I'll bring up a topic, you can like half answer it, and then you bring up another topic, you bring up another thing. You just said that. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it takes a lot of research into this. I've read thousands of books. I mean, you're far advanced in history more than your peers, no doubt. But there's still a lot that I'm about double your age, and besides the fact that. It takes intensive research. It's not going to be internet searches. It's not going to be listening in school. It's going to be you sitting down by yourself quietly.
Well, that also part of that is like you're researching the things that you want to find.
No. I'm researching both sides. There's very few details you're going to bring to me that I have not. I once believed as you do. When Obama was elected in 2008, I was happy because I thought, oh, the police are now going to stop killing black men. That was my mindset back then. So I thought the way you're thinking right now.
Yeah, and like again, like I think that. Like
Where you are, I once have been. Where
Okay.
I am, you haven't been.
okay.
Hey, you're probably right. But at the same time, I just wouldn't want to live my life believing these rabbit holes and getting into these conspiracies and reading books that aren't openly available? Because we gotta look at why, first of all, they're not openly available, and if you're just gonna blame a certain group for them not being openly available, then you're just shutting yourself down and you're just limiting yourself. And I'd rather not live in that pond. I'd rather be a big fish in the ocean than a big fish in this pond. You know what I mean?
Well, so the whole point of free speech was that all ideas could be in the public square, and the best idea can emerge after fierce criticism. So that's the beauty of all this, because all these influencers on there, the same thing's going to happen in a face-to-face matchup. The reason their whole goal is do not give a platform to anyone saying what I'm saying, and they do that. And so if you don't see someone having a platform, because you're young too, you're like something wrong. I thought that way when I was young. I was like, okay, if it's not popular, it must be wrong. That was my thinking. But that's a logical fallacy, the appeal to popular. So you think, oh, if something's not popular, it must not be true. Well, maybe it is true, maybe it isn't true. The other thing is the appeal to expert. It's like, oh, if this expert person didn't say this, then it must not be true. Well, maybe it is true. Maybe there's one person out of all 8 billion humans on this earth that says something, and maybe they're right, and maybe nobody else is wrong. Right, now, that's unlikely, but it's possible. And we need to leave our minds open for that. We can't just say, oh, I've never heard of this person, they must be wrong. We have to leave it open, people that we come across, they may know things, they may be exposed to things, and just leaving open that possibility. I'm not saying you need to decide today that what you hear is right or wrong. All I'm saying is the research that is largely unavailable to you right now. For instance, you guys heard the name David Duke? No? Well, if you look him up, they're like, oh, he's a KKK, white supremacist, all this stuff. But if you read his side, you're going to get a totally different, because I thought that way once. I was like, oh, David Duke, racist, I don't want to read nothing by that guy. But then I read his autobiography and I was like, wow, the media just totally misrepresented everything this man is saying. It's like me, I don't...
Did he ever lynch anyone? Did he
No,
ever
no, he never did anything.
What changed? What was...
So he was so the thing is, in the South, there was, and there still sometimes is, there's a problem with, after Reconstruction, after the Civil War, they took blacks who could not read and put them into leadership positions. And it's okay, yeah, slavery was bad, but that doesn't mean that an illiterate person now needs to be the leader of the city.
When did that happen?
Right after Reconstruction.
What, an example?
What state, what mayor's name?
I got all the data on my website. I could, the sources are on there. I don't know it all.
I'm not gonna buy that right now.
Sure. I'll do careful research after that. And if what I'm saying, if you research and you say, hey, you said, I'll give you my email address is on there on my card. Email me and say, hey, Ryan, you said this, and I've done my research, and then I'll counter. Either you're right or...
Yeah, but that's not, the problem with that is that's over email. You can say this, and then you can put it on your website and cut it up, and then everybody here heard that without a counter argument. You know what I'm saying? So that's
sure,
the
but
last
that's
impression.
The way the media works. They lie all the time.
Yeah,
There's
but you're
no
the media.
counter.
That's the problem, right? You are a
Sure.
media.
If you do that, I have my website. I'll put an article on my website that this is what it is. So, do your research. If I can be factually disproven, I welcome that, because I think that part of growth for all of us is to, if I'm wrong, I need to learn that and move on. I would prefer not to stay in an isolated bubble that it's just my ideas and nobody. And it's not just here. I would go to Russia. I would be dead if I went to Israel. But if I would go to any country and say this stuff, I don't. The truth is the truth anywhere. So objective truth is true anywhere at all times in all circumstances. So subjective truth is something that's just true. So for instance, you might like blue. So that's your truth. But that's not true for everybody in all times and all circumstances. And the difference in pursuing objective truth is your average person does not sit down and study. The Greeks had two sayings: know thyself, and the unexamined life is not worth living. And we don't do that. Overwhelmingly, people are not doing that. Too busy on social media. Sitting down, as a Christian, you know this, why do I do what I do? Christ said it many times, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. So Christianity was all about self-examination, controlling what you can control, and that goes along with this too. So for me, the agenda behind people coming here, it was not for the people coming. It was not because Jews just love people who are not white. It was as a wedge issue to direct against the white majority, because Jews only make up 2% and can't handle whites on their own. That's what this is about right now.
I would say.
So what's your end goal? What's your end goal? What are you doing? You yourself. Right now you're spreading information, but what are you behind closed doors doing for yourself for this agenda?
Well, first
to
of
better
all,
this agenda, to promote this agenda, to provide anything. Because right now it's just information, And it's like, oh, well, come to my side, but what are we going to do next?
Well, so for me, first, it all begins with, and this is on the cover page on my website, we cannot have liberty if we don't have virtue. Virtue is a word you almost never hear. Virtue means, so the three top things that men have issues with today, watching sports ball, television, pornography, that's the biggest one, and drugs. Those three things, that's 90% of your men. Matter of fact, I don't even know. I haven't met a man who's never viewed pornography. That's how bad it is. And that's up from 1900 when less than 2% of the men viewed pornography. So that's absolutely appalling that this is a reality, and yet it is. And then we're not even allowed to talk about this. It all should be illegal. So if
people do talk about like pornography, like in the problem is, I mean, it's in like we got pamphlets in school talking about how it's bad and stuff. Like it's not like people don't talk about it.
well, it needs to be like
And like it is illegal in Montana.
It needs to be like all the porn companies should be banned. There should be severe fines, and there was one group behind legalizing it too. We're up against the same thing. Everything: drugs, pornography, abortion. If you look and see who are the lawyers, even miscegenation, mixing, race mixing. This same group was behind that. It was like, now why are they interested in that? Do they really care about the different races, or are they trying to mix one race out of existence? Because I think that's kind of evil. When you're encouraging people to marry just because you want to mix one race out of existence, I don't think that's a beautiful thing at all. I think that's because I think if God wanted one race, He would have created one race at the very start. Why did He create all different races and put them in all different countries, surrounded by boundaries?
You gotta look at biology. He didn't put them. You got to look at the biology and the science behind the real science behind how we came to like migrate and how like the equator works, how the sun works, how vitamin D works, our skin works, follic cells. You gotta just look at a whole bunch of things rather than blame it on.
Like hold on. Evolution, like evolution and like Catholicism can like and like actual like I believe that the Big Bang. Holy shit. I believe that the Big Bang happened. I think it was an act of God, and I think that the Earth is 300 million years old, right? Like all those things can coincide. The very first humans, or like our ancestors, were all black. They're from Africa. They were all black, and then later. But that's a fact. That's a thing that happened.
That's a school.
That's a fact, though.
It didn't come along recently, though. It was in the 1900s, 1920s.
So like if you're talking about like because like I do believe in God.
6,000 years of recorded human history, people didn't think that. Then suddenly, Franz Boas,
because they couldn't do how.
Yeah, we didn't have the technology to like investigate. Now we do. Now we could
go
back to carbon
dating.
dating.
People didn't know that dinosaurs existed.
Yeah, but so the idea that technology makes us superior, like if you look at the objective data, like just crime statistics,
what are we talking about? Crime statistics. We're talking
health
about
and all that stuff. Technology has not improved us. It has actually made it. I mean, the obesity,
That's not even technology. That's partially technology. It's more so like our food market that's in place, right? Look at what we eat. Look at the diets of most people.
That's not all we're talking about, though.
Fit. There's fit and there's chunky. Yeah, there's gonna be a variety.
No, that's not what we're talking about either, though. Like we're talking about the fact that that God did create one race, and then things happened, and then we became different races, and now we have free will, and God doesn't give a shit, and we can marry whoever we want, and we can have kids with whoever we want.
Well, I mean, that didn't exist. Like in America from 1776 to 1965, you were not allowed to move to America unless you were white. That was the law. And so the change, the Hart-Celler, Celler is a Jew. So when you start to look into who was pushing this and what was their motives, it's like
they did though. Like people did move into America. Like that's like, and like even if it isn't, that's a wrong thing. That's wrong. Like.
But why it's not, because if you're
the moral compass of like why America was created to begin with, it was to get out of Britain to take control. So why wouldn't we do that for others? Like why wouldn't we do it for Mexicans who are like struggling with the cartel, who's just demolishing their community, who is just pouring drugs in their community, who is just killing people, who is just raping your aunt, who is just raping your cousins? Like why wouldn't you want to escape that?
Who's the president of Mexico right now?
She's a lady. She actually they're protesting her for.
She's a Jewish woman. Now, how does a Jewish woman get to be president of Mexico?
It doesn't matter.
Her opposition was killed by the cartel.
I mean, it's amazing. All your opposition ends up dead, like you end up president. So it's like the same thing every country, and it's not just there either. It goes across the board. So I mean, I'm bringing up Mexico, which is 99% Latino Catholic, and a Jewish woman as the president, and that doesn't sound odd to people. It's like, how does that happen? Like, you don't think that the control of the media can influence people to do things that they wouldn't ordinarily do?
I do believe that, but I'm also saying that like all these things about the media and like Jewish control, like I get it. Like I can see the stats and like I have opinions on that, But like, what I'm more worried about is like the fact that like just like the racist ideas that you're promoting, and like the fact that like immigrants, especially Hispanic immigrants, are like some of the hardest working people in the country, and also they commit way less crimes than white people, than everybody else. That's a fact.
The jails are full of undocumented immigrants. They're full.
Yeah, but like those
But yeah, we
people,
just
those people
deport
aren't
them.
committing. Those
And
people
then
aren't
the
committing
people that we
crimes.
have deported in recent histories are tax-paying illegal immigrants.
So, and our legal system has a problem too, because Irina, you probably saw the Irina, the whole Charlotte's thing, where that young white girl from Ukraine just sits down on a train and
gets
is
stabbed
just.
by a black
Yeah, that's
guy,
fucked
yeah.
up. That's a bad thing that happened.
And the
Like,
guy
we
had
can't-
like 35 arrests or something. What was he even doing on the
I
streets?
couldn't tell you, but like it doesn't.
Hey,
like, it's a thing that happens.
And
system that we live in.
That's the problem. So you got to ask yourself, is it okay? So you want to be in America, you have to be equally responsible. We
you
have
blame one black guy on drugs
no,
for
I don't
killing this
know.
poor innocent girl
No.
to say that 90% of America should be white?
No, that's just
That's
that is
anecdotal evidence that isn't fair for other people.
sure. There's plenty of black people and people of non-white races that are perfectly decent, good, upstanding citizens. I'm not opposing that. That is true. The majority, I would say 80, 90% of all other races. That said, if we're going to be here, we have equal opportunity, not equal outcomes. So we have to have equal accountability, which means the crime statistics, if we're going to talk about police shootings like black men, then we need to talk about crime. And we got to, like, I'm a white man, I don't get any excuse. If I was raised poor, I don't get any excuse for if I commit a crime. No one gets any excuse for committing any crime. There's no excuses.
Well, that's not
We
true.
don't
I mean,
look
like,
back.
Talk about like school shootings, which are predominantly white men. And
You actually look at the actual data, it's not predominantly white men. I have the actual pictures, you can look at the pictures, and it's not predominantly white men. That's a narrative that they spell. But the actual data is 6% of America, and this is not a slur on any non-white person, but 6% of America are black men responsible for 50 to 70% of all violent
again,
crimes,
you can go
murders,
back
and
to, like,
rapes.
the context behind that of like.
No, but there is none. You can't.
Well, here's the thing. Okay, but here's what I was
You
talking
can't
about.
commit rape, and this is why
Yeah,
Americans.
it's a bad thing, and they always
White
have the chance to
Americans
say
get fed
no.
up because we're like, if you justify this, there's no justifying this. We can't just justify rape, murder, and violent crime and say, but slavery. No, I don't care.
I'm not justifying it. I'm saying that we have to understand and we have to do things like invest in these communities so that they have opportunities, so they don't have to turn to violence. They don't have to turn to like gang banging. You know what I'm saying? And hold on. And talking about like just everything like with like the percentages and like God told what was his name? I can't remember. But Sodom and Gomorrah, right? Lot. Yeah, he told Lot. Find 10 righteous men.
That was Abraham. Sorry,
Abraham. Find 10 righteous men and Sodom and Gomorrah are saved. 10 righteous men. That's a minority of righteous people saving such a vast majority of unrighteous people. You know what I'm saying? It's like as Christians, what is our calling? What is our calling? We are called to be kind. We're called to be forgiving. We're called to do all of these things, right? And so I feel like this is like a great example of that. There is the black community has a crime problem. We also have to look past that, and we have to look at like what can we do to help them? Like what can we do as Christians? What can we do as, you know what I'm saying, as people who like I've never like gone a day where I haven't like worried about what I'm gonna eat. You know what I'm saying? But I came from like my mom was a single mom. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying?
So LBJ in the 1960s, his whole war on poverty was supposed to end welfare. We have thrown poverty. We have thrown trillions of dollars at welfare. And we shouldn't even have welfare.
Also, LBJ got bogged down in Vietnam, and like he couldn't focus on it. Like there's another thing with that. I mean,
And the Kennedy, and it's funny, LBJ investigated both JFK and RFK's killings, and they never really found out who killed both of them. But the whole thing was welfare has never worked. It never will work. You
I'm
cannot.
not saying welfare. I'm not saying give people money. I'm saying like. So there's a great example. And also, you would probably agree with this because of like your stance. So there's this guy who was walking through the hood, and he was like this block of buildings that were like destroyed. But he's like, so how can somebody like go in and buy this? But it's already owned by a super rich person, and then he keeps walking, and it's like these like very like degraded buildings, right? And like so like this guy owns this area, and but he's not like investing into it, right? Because you know what I'm saying, he's trying to keep these people down. He walks further, he finds this grocery store owned by the same guy, owned by the same group. It's completely empty, completely closed. So like on a map, there's this grocery store here. There's somewhere you can work here. There's there's these buildings that are destroyed. Why don't people invest in this? Because this guy owns this stuff, and people can't dead ass can't invest. They can't find a job. They can't do these things. So creating legislature, or like where that's anyways, where we can like work on that, make that illegal, start like breaking that stuff up and allow opportunity to come into these communities, allow things where change can happen, because places where's like the moral capital of the world right now? St. Louis, or of America. That is a Republican ran
State, but not city. I think the big cities, even in Republican states,
yeah.
are mostly run by Democrats.
But still, like the fact that where the money goes and how it's spent, like Chicago, democratically run both ways. Money is put into these communities. It is now its homicide rate, its crime, violent crime rate has dropped significantly as we invest in these communities, as we do things for these people and give them opportunity.
Well,
Have you taken an economic course?
Yeah.
So you know about how public goods and how taxation can be to the benefit of a community, right?
But you're a Christian. You both are Christians.
You're
Where in
correct.
the New Testament does it say that the problems are economic? It always says it's spiritual. Jesus himself says, "Man,
Yeah, like our
Temptation.
Yeah, but
it's temptation.
Okay, the
And
righteous.
That's the biggest.
It's always
In
spiritual.
Proverbs,
Yeah,
In
and it comes
Proverbs,
from temptation. It
it
comes
talks
from
about-
Satan. It comes from these negative thoughts creeping in, and the only way to fight them is through first surrendering your heart to Jesus. Number one. Number two, just having the discipline and the moral compass to do right. How is saying these racist things doing right? How is that
Well, but so
morally
we're-
right? Is it morally right? Do you
Hold
think
on.
your argument's morally right?
Well, I think, there's nothing wrong with, if God created all the races and nations, I don't think there's anything wrong with them staying that way. Do you? Did God made a
How did
mistake?
he do that? How did he create? He didn't create America.
Why did he create all the different
You just asked
races?
me, where in the Bible does it say this? Where in the Bible does it say that he created these nations to be separated, to not diverse, to not share ideas? Because if we look at Babylon, he was talking about how these guys were sharing ideas.
But then
So like
they
the
got.
Tower of Babel was probably the only time, and maybe in human history, where you get everybody working for a common goal. And it was evil, and God didn't like it. He threw it down, separated them by
It
languages.
wasn't the fact they were working towards a common goal. It's that they thought that they could reach the heavens. They thought that they could be greater than God.
So
That was-
mankind united
wrong.
has never had a good goal. When?
That's
What?
what?
Yeah, it just doesn't happen. When all of
Because-
the,
So
you have
now,
to think
so now
about,
you change your argument. Now you're saying that as a united front, if we had, so even if we
Yeah.
had a 90% white, then
Then how does that help us?
How did-
If
yeah.
we're-
the nations generally do,
Okay, but you
like
just
Muhammad
but
Ali-
you
said
just
that
said that
united
when
front
you have a united front, it doesn't help
creates
us.
problem. Just like
It
a
wasn't
united
good, right,
white
like, for
nation
God.
can
Like
be a white
united front
supremacist
of all
nation.
nations, of all ethnicities, of all cultures. You don't really, like the United Nations is a perfect example. It's not there for humanity's
The fact that they
good.
all share how did he punish them after he broke the tower? After he brought the
He
tower down?
separated them by languages. and-
Exactly. Diversity right there.
Yeah,
he
but-
saved us using that diversity.
Yeah,
Don't
but
what
into
did he say?
different cultures, and they got separated among those cultures. He didn't say,
And-
"Oh, everybody goes together."
But God willed that, did he not? Was that not part of his will? Did he not do that for us?
It
So
was.
that we may prosper?
It was, but there's no point where you see the races in human history living harmoniously together. And if there is, let me know who there it is. Because it didn't, in Rome and Greece, that happened.
It's not here apparently.
No.
But you also,
and
like,
it-
Never
again,
gonna-
like, that's the
never
thing is,
happened.
like-
It's not gonna happen.
Yeah, but you
we're
also
not
have to
working
look.
towards it. We're looking at you're obviously spreading more
Exactly.
No,
separation,
it's because the races
division.
are all designed for their own interests, and there's nothing wrong with that when they're on their own. But when they get among each other, you got words we haven't mentioned yet. We got pride, we got envy, we got jealousy. You can't get along. It's just not going to happen.
That's why the Bible, scripture says, fight those 7 deadly sins, which you mentioned: pride, envy, gluttony, sloth, etc., etc. There's 3 more: wrath. I could keep naming them, but yeah, lust, etc. That's why there's scripture. That's why there's moral compasses. Your argument is based on not having a real right moral compass, and it's not really based. It's based on your truth that as a whole we can't be united. When the whole reason why even diversity was created after we all got different languages was for that very reason, for the very reason to save us from ourselves,
Well,
from the changing of ideas, distracting us from trying to reach the heavens. We're not meant to reach the heavens in our own way. We're meant to, as a united front, as loving thy neighbor, and as forgiving one another as Christ forgiven us.
Right, and that's good. Like, you could be a moral, upstanding, virtuous, wise, righteous person. That's great. At the end of the day, though, we have to ask ourselves, what has been the effect, and who has been behind this diversity agenda in America? It's not, so DEI is basically death to whites. We're heading for white genocide. Is what we're heading for.
DEI is
Yeah,
also gave
we
us, like,
went from
Christmas
40% of the world's population in 1900 down to 10%. That doesn't sound like there's some kind of ulterior. It just naturally happens.
Yeah, it doesn't. It sounds like there's a plan of diversity. It sounds like someone's trying to twist it into their own truth, into their own conspiracy.
Why are only white countries being diversified?
Because again, like why, like people are immigrating there to better their lives for like, because like areas like Iran, areas like India, you know what I'm saying, like the Middle East, right, where people, like where we've been fucking around, where there's conflict, where we've been creating conflict, where there's invaded 2 countries, we have insane embargoes on Iran, like these the opportunities, like to better your life aren't there because of something that we've done.
Well, you're saying.
And hold on. So we don't.
And then you're also talking about-
hold on.
Because America
If you're
has
a
nothing to do with the Middle East.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, 1948, that was Israel. That's what
I'm not
caused
talking
all
about
these
that.
problems in
I'm
the
talking
Middle
about
East.
fucking-
We didn't have problems in the Middle East before 1948, did we?
Yeah, but
It was also colonized, and like all those areas were like not like a major player until until there was oil, and like who owned all of the oil? It was like England, and then when Iran elected Mossadegh, and they tried to like not become oppressed, and like they're like, hey, like England, can we work out an oil deal? And they're like, fuck no. And so we overthrew Mossadegh, we put in the Shah, and then the Shah was oppressing these people, and then the Ayatollah took over, and like now the Ayatollah is like, hey, look at this country that was supporting our oppressor, that's like responsible for your grandpa's death, your father's death. You know what I'm saying? So it creates these things where it's like, yeah, like America, like okay, so if I'm an Iranian kid, if I'm an Iranian kid, my dad was an Army Ranger, right? He tells me stories about like having to shoot like 5-year-old little girls with because they had backpacks full of grenades, right? It doesn't matter, like as a kid who like knew that little girl growing up, and she's like, yeah, like your mom comes to you later that day and like, hey, so and so got shot by the Americans. You're gonna grow up and you're like, yeah, I fucking hate America, all right? So like that creates the problems with like I don't really like America. I don't really like white people because that's who America is, right?
So Madeleine Albright.
But hold on,
And then-
also hold on, because I have to go back. I want to go back to like with like the legislation and stuff. We like as like you're talking about like when do we like where are we called? I don't remember what you said, but like we're called to vote for the righteous. What do the righteous do? They are the people who act in the benefit of the mass, even if it like hurts them. So like if there is something I can vote on and it's gonna affect me poorly, but it'll affect everybody else good, I have if my righteous decision is to vote on that, to vote for that. And if I'm selfish and I'm like I'm not, I can't think of the other word, but like, and if I vote against that, then that's not virtuous. That's unrighteous. That's not what God calls us to do. So things like legislation and like spending money into communities and giving these people opportunity is what Christ calls us to do, because it helps people and it helps the masses instead of yourself.
So let me respond to that and you can go. So there's a great book called The Naked Communist, and he talks about it is the job of everyone and anyone to help the poor and the sick, except the government. Because what's happening is the government is being used as like, oh, we have to help the poor, so that allows us to steal from us. So if you're a rich person, you want to help the poor, go dig into your own pocket and go help the poor. And I do it myself frequently when I can.
Yeah.
But our ability to help the poor is severely disabled
Yes,
because
I
of the
agree with you.
income tax and inflation
I
we're
agree
being
with you.
stolen from.
I agree with
If
you.
we didn't have an income tax, we have plenty of money for the healthcare system and to help the poor.
If we didn't spend trillions,
So if we didn't spend
Overseas, right.
trillions of dollars on our military, on things like that, and we didn't, give like the big beautiful bill where it, allows like billionaires and super rich people, give them tax breaks, and we could like invest that. Like that's what we can't elect people who do things like that, who are gonna affect poor people like badly, because that's unrighteous of us.
Yeah, and I'm with you. So if I had my way, we wouldn't have a standing military. The founders of America were very clear. All of these like imperialism, it has been one small group who owns our Federal Reserve, manipulating our media to have our military all over the world. Because every single military conflict from World War I onwards has been generated by the owners of the Federal Reserve, who are working on World War III as we're speaking right
I
now.
agree with you, but like it's just we can't like focus on things like that. We have to focus on
And
the
we
fact
got
that
the whole like racist. I mean, that word, it was specifically designed so that every other race is allowed to like unite and have like black power. Oh, that's great. Latino power. Oh, that's great. Asian power. That's great. White power. Oh, white supremacist, racist. Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, because of the history behind America.
Yeah, but the
You didn't
history
see you don't hear about Latinos whipping black people. for fun, right? You don't hear lynches, you don't hear any of this, right?
So we hear.
So that's why when you come to white power, whatever the case may be, it's usually going to be looked at towards way back 1700s, 1600s when we used to beat when white people used to beat slaves, right?
Like the difference between like Latino and Black power is like they want to empower themselves to be equal, to have the same opportunities, to have like to be on the same playing field as white people. White power is about keeping themselves above, keeping themselves, giving themselves a head start in the race.
How are we above when we don't control the money system?
It talks about opportunity. It
They're
talks
closer.
about,
They're close. Okay, but it doesn't matter. So okay, in your logic, Jews here, white people here, everybody else here. Same thing though. It's still the same thing.
you also got to think about
It's still the same
implicit
thing.
bias. Have you heard about implicit bias?
Yeah.
Right. So
but the thing is,
you believe racism does not exist at all?
I think it's largely overblown. I do think there's people of every race who dislike other races. Yeah, absolutely. I would argue there's just like they say, oh, you can't be racist if you don't have, if you don't have power. But you can be racist if you don't have power. Everybody can be racist.
The whole power structure is what gives more power, gives more like suffering to the minority. It propagates hate more when you have that power structure.
Well, ask yourself, like you're in North Dakota.
But let me add on to what he was saying about Middle East. I don't know as well as the Middle East, but I have studied North Korea. And the same propaganda that you're talking about from the Jews, the same propaganda that happened in the Middle East, is the same one that happened in North Korea, right? And these are all like places that have like their own race, 90% of their race there, right? Those three communities, all 90% of their own race, right? So now you're over here. I don't see that here in America. I don't see people saying, oh yeah, we gotta hate the middle. Well, I do see that now, but I don't see people saying, oh, we gotta hate this country, we gotta hate that country, we gotta hate these. And we don't push hate toward one single race. That's what you're starting to do now. You're starting to propagate an idea and a propaganda that there is in North Korea, that there's in Middle East, that there is in Israel. You're propagating that same standard. So what you need a
why can't whites love their own?
We do. Like, we can. But it's
you
the
can't.
fact
You
that
can't love whites. You can't love anyone. You can love everyone. Why shouldn't you love everyone?
Yeah.
So,
If the
like,
Bible
South
tells you to
America's
love everyone, why shouldn't you?
So South America's 99% Latino. Nobody's trying to diversify that, and they largely cling to their own.
And if they want to move there where the cartel's gonna freaking take them all their money, then by all means go for it.
So why?
I'm just letting you know, if you want to move to Cabo, if you want to move to Michoacan, if you want to move to Culiacan, you can. Just expect to get robbed or shot.
Right, and
that's all I'm saying.
The other thing is you're in North Dakota, which is 70-80% white. So you understand the crime statistics are much different here in North Dakota than they are in any other state that's not majority white. And it's that way all across America. I was just in Maine. I was in a county in Washington County, Maine. It's funny, I'm in Maine, which is like one of the most northern places in eastern in America. And I was just there 2 weeks ago. Washington County, 31,000 people, 3 murders in 13 years, all committed by black men from New York. So, like, does that mean make all blacks bad? No, but we have a problem, and you can't fix a problem if you refuse to acknowledge that it exists. And I find no justification for any rape, murder, or violent crime committed, period. There's no justification.
Correct.
None, for anyone. And if we're not willing, anyone who's not willing to accept that there's no justification for that does not need to be in America. That's not our mentality.
I was trying to not like justify it. Like,
What I'm just
saying.
wondering is what's the end all, right? Because so far it seems like it's 90%, but your argument,
people. It's everybody that agrees with you. It should be. It's not 9% white. I agree with some of your points, but I don't agree that it's 9% white because I believe rapists, murderers, and stuff like that should follow the law too, and they also have the willpower to do what they choose to do. But that doesn't make my kind less because you're kind. You know what I'm saying?
I have never, so this isn't about superior and inferior. It's about the races. Like if you look back and you look at history, like whites have generally done best when in groups. And if you look at like military history, besides Genghis Khan and Attila the Hun and military history, like it's overwhelmingly white. Then you look at
also, but like, you have to look at like where that comes from, because like you talking about like what were you talking about? Talking about just
just world history and military history.
Yeah, but like you have to think about like where we're also like you don't think that in China like they don't think that like all the Chinese conquerors were great, and you don't think that like Sun Tzu was like we just don't have the sources. We just don't learn about those people.
You don't have anyone on the scale of Alexander and Caesar.
Yeah,
but we totally do. Think about like all those empires in China. Those things were massive. Those were massive empires that commanded
Alexander
millions
and
of
Caesar
people.
went all across the world.
Genghis Khan?
What
What about Genghis Khan?
I just said Genghis Khan
Yeah,
and
but
Attila.
like,
the
He's
Hun.
not white.
I said
all
those
these
two are
Roman
like your
people-
possible exceptions. But other than that, when you go through world history and you go through the leaders, the printing press, Gutenberg in
That came, no,
Germany.
that's bullshit. That came from China.
Well, I mean, this is the
The
way.
same that came from China.
Just time out real quick. I'm not gonna stop your guys'
Okay.
debate. You can keep going. You just can't yell, because I'm getting complaints of people raising
Okay.
their voices.
Okay.
We can't yell, so we have to keep it like lower key, because then it gets, people get worried. No, it's passion debate. It's perfectly fine. I'm not worried about it. You all have your right to free speech. We just have to keep it to a respectful limit, because there's people that work around the corner and people are going down to eat. Okay?
Sounds good.
We don't want anyone to feel
I'll
uncomfortable
try to,
coming in here,
keep the
right?
tone down. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
Thank you.
appreciate it. You're good.
Sorry about that.
No,
But
you're good.
like Rome was trading with China, and the thing about that is like China didn't want any of the products that came from Rome, right? Because they didn't have the things that they needed. They already had everything, and they were selling glass. They were selling all these things that I don't remember exactly.
Spices.
Exactly, all these things that were in China, and all they were getting back was gold. Like that's the only thing that Rome had that China wanted, right? So the fact that you're saying that they were great, it's just because that's what you've been told. That's just what you've seen, right?
Well, no, I mean, if you
Like, when you think about, like-
foundation of
And then white
America-
empires have fallen all in all. All empires have fallen all in all.
Sure.
Why? Because of corruption. That's why it's really important, to avoid propagating hate. It's to avoid that corruption. It's just to really That's why the church is so beautiful. It's really all about forgiveness and love.
It is, but see, I grew up in a multicultural church. I got friends of all races,
Mhm.
and nobody in my church practiced birth control, which is less than 2% of the churches actually do that.
Well, most churches look down on premarital sex, so
That's
pretty
true.
obvious.
But they get married and they're like, oh, I think I'm gonna have 1 or 2 kids. It's like, no, the very first command was be fruitful and multiply. That was even before the 10 Commandments. And
That's also personal choice whether you
no,
have one
it's
or
not.
many.
It's not. The root
No,
of
no,
the,
no, God gave us free will. Now you're looking at the Old Testament. You gotta look at the New Testament. We only got 2 commandments now, bud.
Right,
And
but
that's
see-
love and forgiveness.
But that's the anti. Sorry, I'm trying to keep my voice down. But that's the antinomian heresy. The antinomian heresy says that we could just do whatever we feel like doing, and there's always grace for it. That is not what the Jesus
No,
in the
that's-
Bible.
I'm not.
If I die and I'm drunk, or if I die in the sin of fornication, or if I die looking at pornography, I will be going direct to hell. So that is what most of your churches do not believe. They're like, oh, we don't know his heart. Yes, we do. Jeremiah 17:9 says the heart is desperately evil and it's wicked, and who can know it? That's when you know that the best people on this earth are the people who know that they are wicked, because they actually work on
So,
themselves.
but hold on, and then
That's
if
where
you
you're
die
wrong.
in the state of believing that these people are less than you, you're also going straight
But I
to
don't
hell.
believe that people are less than me. I'm just simply
But
saying
you-
that this was the law in America, and I don't agree with white genocide. I would hope everybody agrees with me.
I don't agree with white genocide.
Because all I'm doing is I'm simply saying an agenda to reduce the white population to where whites never voted to become a minority in their own country, which is where we're headed. So if that happens, and we've already seen 300 million crimes against
It's
whites.
hard to believe that when
Let me finish real quick. So 300 million crimes against whites by blacks have happened, and this is not, anyone who's black doesn't, I'm just stating the facts. 300 million crimes against whites by blacks have happened since the 1965 Civil Rights Act. And the people who run this country know that's a problem, which is why in Dickinson and in every city around this nation, you type in rape, violent crime, and murder by race, and it's not there. So I find that extremely wicked. When we have a problem, I'm about fixing the problem. If you're a good person of any race, I'm your friend. If you're a bad person of any race, I'm your enemy. There's nothing racist about that attitude. You want to be my friend, you be a good person. You want to be my enemy, you be a bad person. That's how it works.
Yeah, and I agree with you, but you're propagating that argument up with arguments that are also used by white supremacists and people who are racist and people that propagate hate and bad things.
So the truth sounds like hate to those who hate truth. So what they have done, especially among the youth, is they have this whole as soon as you see someone as racist or white supremacist, all of a sudden it's boom. It's nothing they say can be right. Everything they say must be wrong, and you're going to be hostile. And it has largely worked. And what you're doing is kind of mild. There's millions of younger under 30, which there's a great book too. And no offense to anyone here, but you have to understand the wisdom and knowledge of your generation because of the internet is severely below what the generations.
Younger. That's a problem. Everybody, that happens to every generation.
Somewhat. But you
Now-
gotta
now,
remember,
see that
schools in North
now
Dakota-
you're denying evidence and data to say that somewhat agree your agenda and your belief, right? You're just throwing his statement off by
Well,
saying
so visit local. They have museums around here. Go to Dunn County. It's about 30 minutes away. they have a schoolhouse from like 50 to 100 years ago. You could go see what happened in their schoolhouse and then compare that to what is happening today in our schoolhouses. It's dramatically different. It's not even comparable.
Yeah, because
And the
education
kids,
evolves.
the kids are far more advanced because
That's bullshit.
no,
From back then?
oh yeah.
Oh, you're tripping.
No,
I've
and-
talked to a lot of older
The 3
generations
R's.
here.
The 3 R's: reading, writing, and arithmetic. There's no comparing. This
Yeah,
generation
I-
right now. I'm sorry. I don't
Yeah,
want to
no,
offend
that's
anyone.
That's how I disagree, because every adult I talk to, I'm way better at math than just in arithmetic. And if we're talking about writing and reading analysis in a debate, most people, especially older people, are very stubborn and very hard to talk to.
Are you? Are you Asian?
No.
Latino?
What's he like?
So you're not in the normal group of young people. But there's a book called The Dumbest Generation, and it's got
Why am I not in the normal group of
Because
young
the
people
normal-
if I grew up in America?
the test scores of your average young person right now are atrocious compared to like young people in 1917. I have the test that they were given.
Yeah, also those
And I
people
probably
like,
aced that test. It's not.
You might,
It's
but
like,
the
but
average.
you have to think about who's taking that test. You could like if school wasn't for you and you weren't good at school, you could just quit. You just have to go to school back then. So like the people who were taking that test were like the top, however many percent instead of everybody who has to do it.
Yeah,
nowadays.
truancy wasn't a thing until way later.
Documents like Jefferson was 33 when he wrote the Declaration
His
of Independence.
lifespan is
You can't-
also way shorter too.
somewhat,
So you get-
somewhat, but like 120.
When did he die? Like how old is he when
I
he
think
died?
he's in his 50s, 60s, around there.
We live in our 90s now for the most part. My grandma's like 88, 90, and she's still kicking. So all I'm saying is that our lifespan has increased. Like some of your arguments are being outdated now, and you gotta like think about like how we are as a society. If you're saying that our society is worsening and worsening, then what can we do rather than just focus on 90% whites, rather than
So-
focusing on the Jews to improve that society?
So it comes
One
to-
thing can be public goods, public services, feeding and investing in our youth.
Well, I think it comes down to the individual. The founders were very clear, and I have it on the cover page of my website, and it's basically, without virtue, you cannot have liberty. Virtue is not a word that we're taught in schools because they took like religion out of the schools. Virtue means right thinking, right speaking, right acting. And so
Behavior of high standard moral is
it is.
Oxford
The
definition.
Greeks and Romans extremely cherished virtue. And then there's another word which I'm going to introduce, which we have not discussed so far, and that is
well, like what virtue? Because like when Rome sacked Carthage,
They raped and pillaged everything there was. So I don't know what
And
you're
that's
talking
not,
about.
that's not
That's
high
the
standard moral.
Carthaginian
That's
side,
also the
but
bias of
Rome
people.
has their side too.
Yeah.
When
Everyone
Hannibal
has their own sides.
Hannibal murdered 70, or he
exactly,
killed.
yeah, exactly. Because like Carthage was not like an African empire. It was a
was white.
Assyrian
They were white.
city state, right? Yeah. So same thing. It's not like they're more virtuous because of the fact they're Roman or Greek.
Well, so it was. I mean, there's going to be good and bad people of all
Well, like,
nations
yeah,
and races,
and-
but
like that was like celebrating. That was a virtuous thing because they won. They were victors. So that was like they were virtuous in that matter. Now, if like even if we are victors and we do that thing, like, that's so awful. That's a good thing. That shows that we are more virtuous than they were.
well, a couple of centuries after that, Marcus Aurelius was writing on like temperance and self-control and treating people well, even if they mistreat you. So there was like the Stoicism, which you mentioned earlier. That's a very valued aspect of them. And in Greece and Rome, you read their philosophers, Plato, Socrates, and Aristotle, who was Alexander's teacher. I mean, their works survive to this day, but the founders of this nation, like Plutarch, his lives, which was not studied today, but they used to read that stuff like the Bible. And they learned it from like the values and the morals. They're like, okay, so Crassus, the word crass comes from Crassus, who started like basically the first fire department in world history. And what he would do is take his slaves and go to some house that was on fire that was worth, let's say, $500,000 in today's money. And he would say, your house is on fire. I would like to pay you like $10,000 for it. They're like, 10,000, it's worth like 500,000. He's like, yeah, but it's worth nothing if it burns down, isn't it? And they was like, yeah, well, that's right. So he would rip people off, and that's how he made his money. And then he died trying to conquer Persia. And the word is, what you describe is hubris. Like you have this idea that, and you mistreat other people. So what I'm saying here, I'm not trying to mistreat anybody. I'm not saying anybody needs to go home. If you're not here legally, you need to go home. Other than that, you just reduce immigration right back to what we just had in '65. You can't come here unless you're white. We'll have America back to 90% white in 10 years. No welfare, cut off welfare and affirmative action. This nation will transform really quick. All of that is what has been used, and the goal is to make whites a minority and exterminate them. Now, if you realize that was the end goal of all this, I think you would oppose it. I don't think yet you begin to realize where all of this is headed. That's why I'm here, is because I see where it has been, the people behind it, and where it's going. And that's what I'm here to oppose.
Actually, I got a quick question. How do you propose that 90% happens?
Basically, kind of what I just said. So first of all, you shut the borders. I don't trust Trump, but I mean, he's somewhat doing it. So you shut the borders. Illegal immigration has to end. You cannot come here unless you are white, and which we just had from 1776 to 1965. The Hart-Celler was pushed by Jews to completely wipe out the white majority.
How did like, if it was illegal to move here from 1776 to 1960, how did Asian people build into colonies with a railroad? How was there the Hispanic or like Latino movement like with RFK or who's his brother that got shot? That was right. No.
RFK.
Was it RFK? It was RFK, but it wasn't Jew.
Like when he was with what's that lady's name? With like just like the field workers. Like how does that happen then if they weren't allowed to move here?
Well, so in the Wild West, like 1849, because the
But this wasn't
railroad.
1849.
And then you gotta think about like
60s,
California used to be owned
1860s.
by
Yeah, so there was, and that actually goes right into our discussion today, because the same reason why the Chinese were brought here by the railroads is the same reason why illegals are brought here today, is it's cheap labor. Let's be honest. I pass by the fields in California all the time. They're not out there making a lot of money, picking in 110-degree heat. They're being exploited. Like Cesar Chavez is like supposed to be like this champion of the workers, but they're still making absolutely nothing.
No, that's cap. Yeah, with the unions, you can make a lot more than before. So he did do something.
Yeah,
number one.
right.
Number two, we get paid more than just above minimum wage in California, so it's like $18 to $20 an hour. I have family that works there, so.
Okay, yeah, but
And it is hard labor. Don't get me wrong, and it's not fruitful for like a family, but it is something. It's better than nothing.
yeah, the whole thing was bringing people from foreign nations to deny white men jobs, so white men cannot marry and have kids and
It's not
wipe out.
even that though. For the most part, it's that white men want different jobs. They want something else, and white men have a father to come to. Most immigrants come here with like nothing. My mom came here with me in her belly, 2 sisters, and a backpack.
Oh, your father, you weren't raised by a father?
My father died when I was young.
Oh, so your mom was widowed?
Nah, they weren't married.
Oh. Well,
Due to
I mean,
circumstances. But she came from nothing. Whereas these white folks, like I'm not to diss on any white people, like they usually have like a grandparent or like older money, right? And they have inheritance. Inheritance is a whole different thing. My mom said when I was 18, I had to be out. I moved out, right? That inheritance thing is really like a white culture. So you gotta think about like the privileges that some cultures have.
I was raised by a mother and father. I'm the oldest of 18 children, and at 18, all of us had to leave. So, there are some white families, you're right, that do give like inheritances and all that. So it's great, but the majority of like the great people in American history, they pulled themselves up. Like Ben Franklin, he didn't have an inheritance. Carnegie didn't have an inheritance. Rockefeller's dad didn't leave him no inheritance. So it's by steady pursuing a goal, but we have to have like some united foundation that we all can operate under. Because if we don't all, like this crime, the court system has to be fixed. Like if you commit a crime, you need to pay the consequence. And I believe in the death penalty. If you're like a serial
So you're
killer,
not a Christian.
I am.
But like that's like super anti.
So, mercy to the guilty is cruelty to the innocent.
So yeah, but mercy is like you don't have to kill them though. Like it's
Life without
Jesus
parole.
there's a death penalty in Jesus' day. He had no problem with the death penalty. He didn't have a
It's
problem.
not that he
with-
didn't have a problem. It's that his sacrifice. So now you're changing the context of what that sacrifice actually was.
Yeah.
As a true Christian, you know that sacrifice. He knew he could avoid that being God's son. He knew that for all of our safety, for all of our souls, for our salvation, he had to give himself up for us. Why? Because he was righteous, which is the righteousness that we were talking about earlier, right?
Right. So, but Jesus.
So you can't change that context
Also,
and say
like,
that
who are
it's something
we?
else and that he had no problem with the death penalty when it wasn't the death penalty. He actually forgave a murderer and Barbanos and a thief, right?
He didn't.
Who
And
are
that-
we to
I
tell
mean,
someone that
forgive-
their life is over?
Thief.
Who are we to say that your life is over? Who are we as humans, as sinners? Like, cause like honestly, cause at the end of the day, like Hitler, me, in God's eyes, the same. And that's a fact. That's a fact. Cause he loves us the same. He loves everybody, right? And I'm not like I'm a Catholic. I'm a very like I believe in purgatory. I believe that like if you die in a state of mortal sin, you go to you're gonna go to purgatory. You're gonna get judged, and you might go to hell, right? But like at the end of the day, like a murderer, somebody who's awful, somebody who's like lived a very sinful life, is just the same as I am. you know what I'm saying? Like who am I to say that? Yeah, you deserve to die. Your life is over. But mine isn't. But mine isn't because we're the same.
So I agree. Paul said that this is the true saying and worthy of all acceptation. Christ Jesus died for sinners, of whom I am chief. So I agree with that concept. However, I do not agree when someone has committed murder and is a threat to commit further death and destruction in your community. I do not agree that that person should be out, number one. And I do believe the death penalty, Jesus, when he was walking the earth, people don't recognize this today, there was the death penalty in place for homosexuality. That was there when Jesus walked the earth, and he did not have a problem with that. See, the difference is the churches today misteach this. They teach that Jesus came and he died for all our sins. We can commit all the sins. No,
It's not that we can commit all those sins.
Right.
That's wrong.
We have to repent.
No, it's not even repent. It's literally to live close to his eyes, to live with the love he lived with.
Right. The moral law never changed. It's always been the same.
No, it has, because the moral law used to be, you have these 10 commandments, you gotta live like this, you gotta live securely, you gotta live very, very disciplined. Now it's like, you have more leeway because I know you will commit sin. I've forgiven you for the sin you're going to commit. Just live close to me and you'll be saved.
Right.
So it has changed.
Well, so what Jesus did was he made sure that, like it said, if you commit adultery, that's a sin. And he said, but I say unto you, if you look at a woman to lust after her in your heart, you've committed adultery with her. So he added another level. Or like murder was a crime, and he says, but I say unto you, if you're angry at your brother without a cause, key distinction there, then that is like murder. So Jesus added a whole another level, but the whole thing is the moral law, like death penalty and all that, he didn't have a problem with that. Like he didn't have a problem with the Pharisees because they were too severe on sin. He had a problem with the Pharisees because they follow the Talmud, and the Talmud says that molesting a 3-year-old baby is okay. And it says that if you're a woman and you're not a Jew, then you're a whore and a prostitute. That's why Jesus had a problem with the Pharisees, because that's what they taught.
Jesus also wasn't a lawyer. He wasn't there to like talk about like the laws of the land. He was, you know what I'm saying? Like it wasn't like death penalty. Yeah, it's an ancient civilization. Like it's, you know what I'm saying? Like
we did. If you look and see how we were operating, were there times that the death penalty was misused? Sure, but across the board, it's a deterrent. There's a lot of people that would not commit crimes.
It's not though. It's actually not.
It is.
No, it's not.
Just
There's
like
so
this.
many stats that are against that.
Just
Against
like
what?
this state
against that, like the
has-
death penalty is like a deterrent. Like if you like people are gonna commit the crime.
They're,
whether
yeah,
or not
no,
the
that's
penalty-
totally wrong.
The
They
other
don't
thing
even
is
think
this
about the
state-
death penalty.
This state is like an open carry, and states without, like with gun control laws, like Chicago and all this, way high crime
Yeah,
rates.
yeah.
But that's
Like,
previously,
you have to
but
put
and we
context
just
to that.
talked about how Chicago's now that they're investing their youth, now that they're
do
the
you
crime
mean?
rates.
What do
Yo,
you mean
you're
shaking
so
your head?
wrong.
No.
You gotta look at the
you
stats.
talking about?
Not,
What are you talking
now
about?
you're just
I
denying
think Chicago
statistics.
is it's going to continue like that because first of all, the Democrat Party of the two is the worst. You can't throw money at problems and think there's
But
going
like
to
they're not throwing
They're
money
not
at
even
problems,
throwing
they're
money
creating
problems. They're
opportunities,
just
getting these people, like-
disbanding gangs early by
What do
providing
you- like,
the youth,
it's
giving the
literally
youth
getting
comfort and
better.
safety.
So every time you see this money, watch where it's going to NGOs, non-governmental organizations,
Okay.
and they're always run by one small group who almost always misuses it. Almost always. So
Okay.
someone mentioned IPAC, they're an NGO. The NAACP, that's an NGO.
YMCA.
Somewhat.
But I don't know about all that. But like the fact that like they like spending money on your people, giving them opportunity is a fact that it helps people like not commit crime.
So just-
Well, hold on, but like I don't know, man.
I disagree
One point,
because I grew up in Southside Stockton, and all my I had a lot of cousins that are gangbangers. I had a lot of like friends that are gangbangers and stuff. The people who made it out and that I'm out here was due to youth sports, staying away from them because of youth sports. So saying that has absolutely no help is wrong when there's anecdotal evidence like me. And if you're able to present anecdotal evidence for your argument, I feel like it's fair for me to bring my anecdotal
Sure.
side to it as well,
Sure.
right?
I mean, that's fair. I mean, there is the appeal to antidote, which is a logical fallacy. And I've offered antidotes, you've offered antidotes. When I offer an antidote, I try to make sure that it's statistically, so I can offer an antidote of crime, but statistically I know what the crime statistics are, so it goes along with that. I try not to just say this is my personal experience, because yeah, it's true.
All I'm gonna say is look at Chicago. Their crime rate is going down. Whether you refuse to admit or believe it,
Yeah.
it's going down. So, same with if Memphis or any of these states or cities were to implement these laws and actually actively try to help your youth, we're gonna disband more gangs than anything. And it's why, because of I agree with it because of my personal experience, but seeing how Chicago's operating now brings me hope to my own state in California.
Well, we have to reach the rate where self-responsibility, everyone has to be accountable on their own. And this is why a lot of whites, when they hear the argument from non-whites that we need money to do well, a lot of whites are like, well, you shouldn't, because we here, the people who came here did not get welfare. They worked, did they still, so that's subjective, but there was actually the biggest massacre between whites and Indians was whites. It was at Fort James or something. 500 mostly white men and women were murdered in cold blood.
How many natives died on the Trail of Tears, man? Thousands. So that's just false.
Well, so overall, it was pretty savage on both sides. It's not like one side was good and one side was bad.
You look at the Civil War. Two different white groups fighting against each other, and that's the highest death count in all of our wars.
600,000, right? But so even with that, it's like, when in world history have you seen one race fight a war to free another race? And people say it's not about slavery, but every single succeeding document in the South listed slavery as a cause for the Civil War.
I'm not saying it wasn't. I'm saying that's one of the reasons. It also has to do with the fact that the way of living was attacked on both sides, and just overall, just the cultural differences and norms in that, where the South is more agricultural than the textile North, right? So there's a lot of factors. Same as how you were saying that it's 90%. It's a lot of factors.
Well,
At the end of the day,
Lincoln and the founders of this country, they opposed slavery overwhelmingly. Washington freed his slaves. Jefferson was going to, but he knew if he freed his slaves, they would get sold right back into slavery. So they had a very, there's like the Northwest Ordinance, and right before the 1800s, they all signed it where they said we need to end slavery. They ended slave trafficking and all that. But they were very clear, we need to end slavery, but we don't think that we can live together as races. They understood that.
If you look at it, almost every war that you can think of has been fought because of someone else's rights. Like World War II was fought because of the Jews were having their rights taken.
Okay, so
They didn't know. They didn't know
So
about
who
that.
declared
A lot
war?
of people
Who
did.
declared war first? Did Germany declare war on the Jews, or did the Jews declare war on Germany first?
It started as Germany declaring war on the Jews, and actually that's not true either, because it started. It started with Germany invading Czechoslovakia.
That's part of it. So the other thing is the
Which
bankers.
is the Czechs' rights.
Germany experienced the greatest economic turnaround.
Yeah, because they stole a bunch of money from the Jewish people.
That was before that. That was before World War. And besides, the term 6 million Jews die in a Holocaust, how in the world does that happen to be in hundreds of newspapers before 1939 when World War II happened?
I don't know.
It's true. And there's nothing in Germany,
Because
there's no
there's-
book, and there's no speech by the Germans about exterminating Jews.
Actually, there
But-
is a lot. It's.
But there is a
Final
book by a
Solution.
Jew about exterminating the Germans.
Actually, that was literally part of Hitler's entire plan. Is the final solution,
Did you read
which
Mein
was.
Kampf?
I have. I've read a lot of it.
I didn't see anything in there about exterminating the Jews. He said the Jews were behind a lot of the problems.
It wasn't in Mein Kampf. It was actual recorded conversations that they've had. It was about it literally called the final destination.
They called it the final
The
solution.
final solution.
But they've
Where they
ransacked it, and they
wanted-
have not come up with a single book or speech by the Germans about exterminating
Except for the
Jews.
fact that they have. It's literally everywhere.
There's a book called The Greatest Hoax of the 20th Century that says that the Holocaust was largely made up. So that's
And it wasn't.
that's banned on Amazon.
and it wasn't Schindler's List. It's a great
Spielberg
movie.
made that. It's
Go
propaganda.
as.
So actually, here's another thing. So we all know
Based on a
basic
true
math.
story?
So 6 million. No, actually, Schindler's List. That's total fiction. 6 million were alleged to be killed under the Holocaust. 100 million under communism. Name 3 movies about communism.
But like, what are you talking
About
about? Like
actual
100
communism?
million people.
Were
yeah.
killed under communism.
Yeah, like in like Russia. Yeah, I've heard about that.
40 million in Russia,
But get-
60 million in China.
But like
So
a
three-
lot of those
you
people.
can't name 3
Well,
movies
hold on,
about
hold on.
communism?
A lot of people, like a lot of those people who were
Jews
killed.
don't make it,
Oh my
they
god.
control Hollywood.
A lot of those people that were killed by the Russians and like in like Ukraine area were Jewish. Like millions of them were Jewish. They were Jewish Russians.
So the Bolsheviks, when they first started, Leon Trotsky's real name is Lev Bronstein. He's
Yeah,
Jewish.
I don't give a shit. But like those people, like the fact that like we talked about this already. We talked about that. We talked about the Bolsheviks and how he's rich, and then like how all of that like coordinates. The fact that like
like you're talking about 100 million people, like a lot of those people were Jewish, so it's still a bad thing to happen to Jews. Yes, yes it was. Yes, they were.
100 million?
I didn't say. I said a lot of them.
No, but no, that's
Yeah.
not, no, it's
Yes,
not.
it is.
Okay.
No, it's
In
not.
China.
It is.
That's not. No, the
The
100
founding of-
million were killed. And
I didn't say 100 million Jews were killed, but I
I
said.
mean, no, because the thing is, the first thing that happened in Russia when the Bolsheviks took over was you got the death penalty if you criticized Jews.
I haven't heard anything about that.
What? Name one person who's gotten the death penalty for criticizing Jews.
It's talking about Russia.
There's a
like the
90-year-old
1940s.
woman, Ursula Leva, in Germany. She got thrown in jail for saying the Holocaust didn't happen.
What was her name?
Ursula
Well, that's illegal. Yeah,
Leva,
because that's
she just
illegal
died
because
recently.
it's.
Well, I mean, if it didn't happen, if it did happen, you should be able to prove it. You shouldn't be throwing people in jail. She had evidence. There's evidence that
It's the same thing with
there's
like-
evidence the gas chambers were built after World War
Going back to
II.
Bundy, an estimated 35K to 250K Jews were killed primarily in Ukraine by various armed forces,
Wait,
including the Red Army.
What's the source? Wikipedia? Because Wikipedia is owned by 2 Jews.
EBScode.com.
I would say that.
You want me to go to
like,
Bing?
if
You
you're
want me to go to
gonna be
Yahoo? I
up
can go on ChatGPT
It's
and
all
find
by Jews. If you
everything.
can't find a non-Jew source that's actually...
Okay, so now you're just gonna blame the, I get it, the media,
Google's
etc.,
owned by
etc.,
Jews. Why would you
etc.
think a search engine would be
I just,
hostile?
I'm just really.
Then,
I guess.
then go ask a veteran. As someone who served in World War II. My grandpa actually served in World War II. And he could tell you, well, he's not anymore, he passed away 10 years ago. But I've heard countless stories. He told me.
Well, I'm
about-
a Navy veteran, so I mean, I served. I was
I'm
in
not,
the
I'm not,
series.
I'm talking about someone who was there. Like, he could tell you about people who came back and talked about this shit, seen this shit. You can't just say that people who weren't Jews are just influenced by these Jews.
Patton fought Hitler. And at the end of World War II, Patton said, we fought the wrong enemy, and he was killed for it. He couldn't come back to America. Forrestal was the Secretary of Defense. He found out about it, and he was killed.
I would say that like talking to you over this. Don't like present this as like a race debate, just so you can start so you can just start talking about like the Jewish problem or whatever. Or whatever.
Like I said,
Because like that's why I came here.
It
So I
seems
was
more
like,
like engagement based than anything, because the
Yeah.
real like root of your argument has to deal more with the background actions of the Jews that have led to this. Whether you believe it's a white genocide or not, I don't think it's a white genocide. I think it's an American problem, a divisive nation.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
that's
like-
how you really gain power. How do you gain power? By dividing your opponents. Right.
I would say
So it's not a race thing, and I wholeheartedly agree with Bundy. You're pushing it as a race thing when it's more so a different issue that you have inherent in yourself.
It's like, I mean, the average person, I mean, if you've heard of the Hart-Celler, you're like less than 1% of Americans. Americans overwhelmingly are unaware that, and we were told in 1965 when this passed, we said it would not affect your demographics. Your nation will remain 90% white. Well, that hasn't happened. And so it's kind of like, well, was that deliberate? Was it intentional? And if it is intentional, is that right to lie to somebody to get them to accept people
It wasn't
into
even
their...
intentional or deliberate, because if you look at it, most of the, and I'll be honest, most of the immigrants in California are illegal, are Hispanic illegals, right? It's not
Like-
people from the Middle East. It's not Canadians. It's not a lot of Europeans. Most of the Europeans already came from previous.
what does Jesus?
situations.
How does Jesus tell us to treat the foreigner though? How does Jesus tell what does Jesus tell us to treat how to treat the foreigner?
Where did Jesus preach? Only in synagogues.
Synagogue
Okay,
church.
yeah,
He
that's-
reached out to the first
he lived in a-
Gentile,
oh my
the first
God, yeah,
Gentile
he
was
only
not
treated-
added to
he
the Christian
only-
church until Acts
He
when
only,
Cornelius.
he
Synagogues are
only
Jewish.
hold on. He only preached in synagogues because he was in Judea. He was preaching
In where the Jews lived, right? So like, where else is he gonna preach? Is he gonna go to a Roman? Is he gonna go to a shrine to Mars and preach?
He only traveled like 200 miles from where he was born.
Yeah,
But
because
the
that's the holy people. That's the holy land. That's like the Jews are like God's chosen people, right? The Hebrews. Well, I should say the Hebrews, not the Jews.
Right, but Jesus was very clear.
But no, hold on. Actually, answer my question though. How did, what does Jesus tell us? How does he tell us to treat the foreigner, to treat the poor?
Same way in the Old Testament, if the Jews were married to somebody who wasn't Jewish, you separated.
That's the Old Testament.
But
Jesus
what
said- no,
does
Jesus said he
Jesus
came
tell-
to
how
fulfill
does
the old
Jesus-
law.
How does
No,
Jesus
exactly.
treat?
That's what I'm telling you. That the New Testament gave us 2 commandments, dog.
How does Jesus treat this like the Samaritan woman at the well? How does Jesus treat the Samaritan woman at the well?
Okay, so-
who has he says like he talks like he goes to her like bring me the living or bring up like a bowl of water right from the well, and she goes like what like and like he talks about like how she has like she has had like sex with several men, and like how she's impure, and like how like these other Jews look, how 5 husbands, and like if you come to me, you have the living water, whatever. But, like how does he treat her? Even though she's been like, she is like one of those people that like you're supposed to be separated with. But like, how does he treat her? And how does he treat other people after that? Like the same people. How does he treat the Samaritans? The whole story about the Good Samaritan is the fact that like these people who you look down upon are the same, and they can do good things. It's just that the fact that you look down upon them.
It's not looking down upon. It's just that there
That's
are
what it is,
distinct differences. Like there was no Christians that were added that were Gentiles until Acts when Cornelius was added. Jesus' apostles were all Jews. He didn't come to bring the gospel to anyone but the Jews. It was so. If you say that, oh, Jesus didn't, everyone that he preached to was Jewish.
Because that's who was there.
Yeah, well, that was his whole focus was Jews. And the other thing is like the.
So those are the people who believed that there was a God and not separate, and they weren't paid. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and after when the Jews didn't obey God, 70 A.D. Trajan and Vespasian went and leveled Jerusalem to the complete ground, and that started diaspora, where the Jews went all over the earth, and everything we're dealing with right now is because.
Well, again, answer the question. What does Jesus like with like illegal
treat
immigrants?
people well and with respect, but he also
And accept them into our life.
in Acts it says God created the nations with the boundaries. Our nation had laws.
Acts
If it's in the same
What's the
Acts
context
17:11, I think it says God has created of all nations one blood. So he does say he creates all nations of one blood, but he also says he creates the nations with boundaries. And the Jews were very strict about it. I mean, even now in Israel, look at them. You can't move to Israel unless you're
We're not
Jewish.
talking about that. Like, we are talking. That's our whole problem, I guess. Is like I don't.
The thing that Israel is doing right now is what?
Yeah, it's awful. What Israel is doing against. Well, because here's the thing: is like here's something we can agree on. Is like the people in Palestine are actually more closely related to like the original Hebrews who lived in Judea, whereas the Jews who like moved there are not related to I agree with I think that it's genocide. I'm not gonna say Israel shouldn't exist, but I should say that they're the genocide against Palestine isn't fair, and I think that their actions a lot of the times disrupt the Middle East. I think that's a bad thing. But I guess this kind of goes back to the fact that I'm arguing with you because I still am upset about the racist.
I don't advocate mistreating anybody. I just think that all races do better when they're among their own. I think I could treat every race equally. I got black nationalists that agree with me. They're on my side. Like Muhammad Ali and Louis Farrakhan and Malcolm X, they all agreed with Rockwell, who was a white supremacist. I'm not a white supremacist.
Is it better to do? Do we want to do better economically and further our standing in this world, or do what God told us to do and accept people in love and be generous and then get into have our eternal life with Him?
Well, if the majority of people here who are not white came here illegally, why aren't we all first obeying the law?
And Malcolm X also didn't say that we should move back to Africa or anything like that. He believed that whites and blacks were equal, but they should be separate, but they could remain in America. So lessening the other races, or
I need to go to practice.
90% white is just wrong. That's not
Yeah.
what Malcolm X believed in.
Did I give you my website? Muhammad Ali said the same thing. He was like, bluebirds are with bluebirds, seagulls are with seagulls. You don't find eagles marrying crows. He's like, I want to marry a black woman. I don't want to marry someone from another country, and I don't want to marry a white woman. He said, I think white men feel the same way. That's what Muhammad Ali said.
Yeah, Acts 14:16 was about the Greeks and Zeus and their Greek mythology and how they shouldn't believe in other gods besides God. And he said that God had suffered and made you guys go your own way. But now, with God with us, we should be united under God. That's what Act 14:16 is. Not for the rhetoric of 90% white. It was more so that you guys went your own way, but now it is time for us to come together under God.
Well, I mean,
So that's what Acts 14:16 is.
The agenda and motive behind opening up America to non-whites, was it a good one, and was it by good people? And the answer to both of those questions is no.
No, that's
It's
what
not
you may
that the
believe.
people who
I
come here
believe
are-
I believe
not
it's
like-
different.
like,
I believe that
it's not-
diversity is a great
see,
thing.
I think you're taking it like as a slur against. It's not a slur against you. There's a lot of people that are being taken advantage of and used. The communists call it useful idiots, that we're going to use these people for our agenda. It's not like you're bad. There's millions of hardworking Latinos who do a fantastic job, the best of their ability.
Yeah.
There's somewhat of a crime problem, but the vast majority are law-abiding citizens. So it's not a slur against Latinos. It's just the agenda to bring them here was part of a forked process with the black community to use them against whites. And we have to be
feel like
wise.
that's a correlation
So-
that you're building yourself to like
So why doesn't
propagate an idea that
why doesn't it say it should just be law-abiding citizens? What does it have
Yeah.
to do with white, black?
Right, exactly. That's exactly
Well,
what I'm wondering.
the question
Citizen
because the
engagement.
question is from
Like what you said.
1776 to 1965,
engagement.
you could not move here unless you were white. That only changed because of the Hart-Celler Act. Before the Hart-Celler Act, and we were told that that's not going to affect your demographics, and now we're being told by people who we invited here, we're being told that we're oppressors and colonizers, which I disagree with all that behavior. I don't stand for that, and I think mostly Jews are behind us in the Middle East and all that.
I would say elite Jews. There's a separation.
Sure, Talmudic Jews, I would say. Their Talmud it's a piece of work. But yeah, so the whole motive to bring other people here was not a good one at all. It wasn't like they love other races and let's welcome them in, because Israel's not doing it. There's closed borders for Israel. Try going into Israel if you're a Palestinian and see what happens. So they got closed border for them and open borders for us.
No, I see. I get what you're trying to say, and I see like the correlations you're trying to make in this argument. To me, it sounds like a conspiracy theory that I hear on Instagram Reels. I'm sorry, but
I mean,
but
the term
but as a
conspiracy- the Jews made up the term conspiracy theory. And came
I
back-
disagree. I feel like some people like go into these rabbit holes. I've seen it like in uncles and schizophrenic like individuals in my family who go into these rabbit holes. I'm not saying you're one of those. You seem very awfully, very intellect and very, very respectful. All I say though as a Christian is to remember the New Testament, the Old Testament has its ways, and also not to take verses out of context, fully read them. You know, the player's talking to you, Ryan, right?
Yeah, your name was.
Good, Jose.
Did I give you my website?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
No, I gotta
Yeah.
practice, so.
Hey, thanks
Good
a lot.
talking to you.
Yeah, take care. Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to offend people. I appreciate everybody having the rational discussion. That was really appreciated. And then questions. And if people disagree, I mean, bring the. It's just they take these. There's no platform for people like this online. And when there is, those people online who say this stuff they're paid. So people like me, we're just like eliminated. You don't ever hear from us, and then when you do hear, it's like racist, anti-Semite, Nazi, whatever, all this stuff. And when they're done with that, the average person wants nothing to do with you. Have you ever heard the word Marxist?
No.
So it means a hatred of white people. So it's like, so racist, we've all heard that word, and anti-Semite, and I agree, we should not mistreat anybody of any other race, but white hatred is okay?
I mean, I don't think it's okay for any race, not just white.
Sure, I agree. But then, and the other thing is, let's be equally accountable. Why are the crime statistics hidden for rape, murder, and violent crime hidden for every large city in America, including
Well, that's
Dickinson?
government corruption.
Why are they hiding it though? It's like it shouldn't.
Because it keeps them in power.
Do you think that maybe if we found out that there was a correlation between crime and race, that they wouldn't like that?
The correlation isn't between crime and race, it's between the way the political system was set up when welfare was set up. The white politics strictly set up welfare so that these neighborhoods, because before the 70s, there was less crime in black neighborhoods, and as soon as, I can't remember which president it was, but they started giving out more and more welfare for single mothers, and they specifically targeted black communities, which then caused fatherless homes, which led to more crime, because you had juvenile kids out on the streets on their own.
Yeah.
And that's corruption from the government. That's not really race.
Well, it was
related.
LBJ. LBJ was arguably the most pro-Trump is now, but he was the most pro-Jewish president in our history. So right as soon as the war on poverty happened, then drugs were introduced into the black community, welfare was introduced, and rap. Rap started in the 1970s, right after the war on
Yeah, and
poverty.
they continue to just give them enough to get by, never to get out of the hole. And they should be promoting family dynamics rather than family separation, and that's what the government promotes in those neighborhoods, and that's why you see rampant crime rates and stuff specifically. And it's not really race, it's government corruption.
Well, both races, black and white, before integration, both races had the majority of their leaders that opposed it. They both knew it was going to be bad for them. Both of them, blacks and whites, understood that integration was going to be a very bad thing. And the 1960s, Lovings versus Virginia, that was when interracial marriage started for the first time. I mean, I don't know what to say. What is Jews' interest in pushing that? But they did.
I mean, what's wrong with interracial marriage, though?
Well, if you look at human history,
If-
if you study it, the one thing that's pretty similar of all civilizations, as soon as they mix, it's over. Like, as soon as you lose your cohesion and your homogeneity among race, yeah, your morals, I mean, there's good and bad people of all races, and that's fantastic. We should treat everybody equally and all that. But as soon as your race mixes, it happened in Greece, it happened in Rome, it happened in Portugal, it happened in Spain, it happened in Britain, it happened in France, it's happening in America. I don't think we're really gonna reinvent the wheel. I don't know. I mean, if you think you could do something that's never been done before in history, good luck trying it, but it's just never been done. And if you look at the event,
What was your point with all that, though?
the point is that interracial marriage has never worked out for any society in recorded human history.
I don't see why it hasn't worked.
Well, if you could name a society that has worked, I'd like to hear about it because I've never seen it. 6,000 years of recorded history, and I don't see a single example.
Well, if you have interracial marriage, it's that not everybody's gonna do it, so you're still gonna have different
Well, why
races.
are the commercials right now? The blacks make up 13% of the nation. So why are 70 to 80% of the commercials blacks? Why?
Again, that's people with the money that are trying to divide people.
Who owns the Federal Reserve?
I don't know.
Well, I have a couple of, first of all, I won't even name the group, but
But it's elites trying to put divisive stuff in and create division within country and promoting stuff like that and trying to get people mad about little things like that to keep them divided so they can keep the power.
so the creature from Jekyll Island is, it talks about like in 1910, there was 6 men representing a quarter of the world's wealth that met at Jekyll Island, Georgia. They cooked up the Federal Reserve, the 16th Amendment, and the 17th Amendment. Wilson was elected in 1912, and the conspiracy theory term was invented after JFK was killed. The CIA said anybody who questioned the Warren Commission was a conspiracy theorist. That word did not exist before then. But in
But the concept still could have existed.
Sure, but they created it, basically a lot of things that people are.
There's a lot of words that have come out after a concept has already been.
Yeah, so,
Term.
the 1912, Wilson was elected, 1913, the worst year in our history, income tax, Federal Reserve, direct election to senators, 1914, World War I starts, 1917, the richest man in the world is killed, the Tsar of Russia, murdered, and all his wealth stolen. That's where the communist revolution starts. So when you start putting it all together, and then 1920, the 19th Amendment, women are given the right to vote, so you basically ruin the family. Family cohesion is ruined, because now you have, there has to be, if there's not authority in a home, which is the basic building block of your nation, you have no nation, and that's our problem right now. We can't, like a man, he can't run his own home. Like there's no other contract that you sign, if one party breaks it, they win. But in marriage, if a woman like breaks the marriage, and I'm not excusing abusive men or men hitting women or men molesting, all the bad, I'm not excusing any of that, but I'm just simply saying if you get married, you should stay married. This whole no fault divorce is a bunch of nonsense. And so with the breaking apart of the family cohesion and the bringing of welfare by FDR, now women are encouraged, if you get married, you just don't feel like it, you just leave your man, take the money, take the children, and the marriage is done. And it has been a disaster. I mean, 70% of marriages, divorces are initiated by
And do
women.
you think that's a governmental divisive problem, or?
It's pushed deliberately to split apart the family. And it's done a wonder. While we men can't get married and have large families, we're being flooded with people from other countries who are a lot of times not even white.
What do you mean by, like, what's your definition of white in this situation?
So European origin, I'm Italian. And people say, oh, your people were discriminated against. We were, but Italy is from Rome. Rome is what this nation was founded on. Rome and Greece were the foundations of this nation. The founders were very well aware of their history. The republics, a great read is Gibbon's Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. You go over all the mistakes they made and you try to make a constitution, which one of the central rights is what we're enjoying right now, which is the First Amendment. So the reason why we're great in America is that one person is given the entire authority to say whatever they can by everybody. It doesn't matter if all 350 million Americans
That's not how it works, though. One person doesn't have that entire power. That's why we have the Senate. That's why we have the House. That's why we have lower courts. That's why we have higher courts. That's why
No, I agree with that.
That's why we have an entire system of courts for this stuff.
Yeah, and so what I meant is that with free speech is that one person in our public meetings should have the ability to state their mind, no matter if other people think it's hateful or racist or whatever the other words. There is no exception in the First Amendment for hate speech.
There is.
No, there's not. The Supreme Court ruled 9-0. Even the liberal ones voted on this in 2017 in Mattal versus Tam, that there are no exceptions in the First Amendment for hate speech. So there are exceptions, like if I start like inciting violence towards people or like encouraging killing someone, that's where the line is drawn. You can't publicly like say, oh, I'm gonna kill this person. No, you can't do that. But when it comes to stating your opinions and defending them, the whole concept of free speech was one idea could get up in the public square, and if it could stand up against all opposition, then it gets to win. But what's happening right now is one idea gets up, and you're lucky if you get out of the building without getting beat up or shot and killed. Because in Chicago, if I said what I'm saying right now, there's a good chance I would be shot and killed before I left.
And like what you're bringing up with like people getting shot and killed for their ideas, most of that is actually white people doing it. Like who killed JFK? It was a white person. Who killed recently Charlie Kirk? It was a white person. Who killed like the Tsar of Russia? Like you brought up, it was white people.
Jews.
Again, white people.
No, there's a big difference between Jews and white people. The Kuno-Kalergi plan is by Richard Kuno of Kalergi, who's a Jewish-Japanese man who is kind of like the proponent of the EU. So he wrote the Kalergi plan, where basically the whole earth is gonna mix, we're gonna all be one race, and we're gonna be ruled from Jerusalem. Now, I'm Italian, so my ancestors in 70 AD, they destroyed Jerusalem. And who just got Jerusalem back after like 2,000 years? Trump just gave it to him, I think, 2017, 2018. So the game plan.
Jerusalem was created in the 50s.
1948.
40s.
But the Jews just got Jerusalem back as the capital under Trump. It was not their capital until Trump. That just happened. And so their goal is they're going to have this, they don't allow free immigration into Israel. Everybody carries around machine guns. And who pays for Israel's healthcare? We do. They all have free
We also
healthcare.
pay for like, we're basically the reason for all of Europe's universal healthcare, because if you look at it, when we joined UN, which is a huge issue, we are supplying, I can't remember like the actual number, but we're paying all of these other countries dues basically, which is allowing these other countries to have universal healthcare. It's not just a Jerusalem problem, it's a problem everywhere, and I don't support it. I think if they want to be there, they should have their own say, but that's neither here nor there. But that's not just a problem with Jerusalem, that's a problem with the US everywhere. We help everyone everywhere.
Well,
So that's not just a Jew problem, that's not just a problem in Africa, that's a problem in a lot of European countries. Like we're helping Ukraine, which is a lot of white people. So
Right. President Zelensky is a Jew. So, I mean, when you begin to look into these things, you see the same recurring factors. But with the UN, after World War I, they had what was called the League of Nations, and it was defeated. And so they learned their lesson. And what the Treaty of Versailles, 80% of your representatives from every country were Jewish. So they put Germany into a tremendous bind, putting her into tremendous debt. Weimar Germany was a cesspool of corruption and poverty.
And I don't agree with the Treaty of Versailles either, because I think how that should have gone down completely differently, and it didn't. But how do you deal with a country that's basically caused two completely separate world wars? You have to.
We gotta ask ourselves, like, there's a lot of people who think we should have.
No, Germany didn't. I don't agree that Germany caused World War I, but they did result in most of the escalation. It was between Czechoslovakia, or not Czechoslovakia. It was I can't remember the name. Sorry. But it was two completely different countries that Germany was brought into on it, and I don't agree with how they escalated it.
Well, to rewind, so 1913, the Federal Reserve came along, so America took our money was basically taken control of by the Federal Reserve Jewish owners. And then what happened was 1914, Franz Ferdinand of Austria was murdered. And by 20-year-old Gavrilo Princip, who was a Freemason, and that touched off World War I. And Lusitania was totally rigged. I could go over all the details. Lusitania was, take care. Lusitania was rigged. All this stuff was rigged, and so that got our entry into all these wars. So it's I'm glad there was able to be a conversation. I know what I'm saying is like not popular because your media is totally, there's no opinion like this in your media, and when it is, it's big time attacked. So it's
with what you're bringing up about that is, like what I was saying about like World War I and World War II, they were also in an extremely difficult situation because let's say we're in a school, this kid didn't start a fight, but he keeps getting brought into fights and he keeps escalating them, right? You have to take drastic measures, right? You can't just World War I, that was completely what happened after World War I, completely wrong, didn't work. It set up the stage for World War II, but that still doesn't excuse what happened, like what Germany did, right? And I don't believe that. I don't 100%.
Why did we attack Germany? Germany never attacked us.
Why did we attack Germany? Because we were supporting our allies, Britain and Italy. Not Italy, France.
So there's a book, a couple things. So number one, if it was about Polish sovereignty because Germany invaded Poland and so Britain and France attacked Germany, if it was about that, then why did Russia invade Poland at the same time?
Actually, they did attack us. They bombed one of our ships, or they destroyed one of our ships. That's why that was
Germany did?
Yep.
No?
Yep. It was a passenger ship that was carrying arms and it had a bunch of Americans on it.
I'm talking about World War I, so Lusitania.
Yeah, the Lusitania, and World War II. That was there. It was when they were talking to Mexico, trying to get Mexico to invade America.
They disproved that. The Zimmerman, they've proven that was a hoax.
It's been proved that it was real countless times though too. So what are you gonna believe?
No, it was not. So the Pearl Harbor, first of all, Day of Deceit conclusively shows that the American FDR knew that Japan was going to attack Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, because there was Japanese submarines all around the island.
The other thing is that Pearl Harbor, the admiral, his name was Richardson, he was told to put the ships at Pearl Harbor, and he was like, I'm not going to do that, they're going to be sitting ducks. He was fired and replaced with an admiral that would put the ships at Pearl Harbor so that they could be bombed. And we had cracked their codes months before Pearl Harbor.
We did not crack the Enigma
We did.
codes. We did not crack the Enigma codes until like halfway through World War II.
Read Day of Deceit. It's all the evidence is in there. Day of Deceit, and there's the other one. When communism ended, there was the records were found of that Russia was actually poised to attack Germany before Germany attacked under Operation Barbarossa. Russia already had the troops lined up. That's why they were surprised. So and I'm not a Hitler supporter. I don't think that like Hitler was this great man. I'm not like that. But there are we were on the wrong side of both world wars. Of that, I'm convinced.
Everybody was on the wrong side of World Wars.
Yeah.
There was no right situation in either World War.
But all wars are bankers' wars. Maybe we agree on that.
Kind of.
Because our media, which is what's leading to a lot of the ideas that are being discussed right now, is controlled by the same group that was behind these wars. And we have to wake up soon because World War III, we could be in it this year. We could be in it tomorrow.
Like what you said about the bankers' wars, I don't 100% support that. I don't think it's wrong, but I don't 100% support it because I think, like with World War I, it was allies getting called in to support their allies. Do you think Germany didn't want to join in because they were already struggling? World War II, they were already struggling. They had to call in their allies. And it's one of those situations where if I can't support them now, what am I supposed to do? It's you have to support your allies in these situations. And Germany thought they were correct. We thought we were correct. No one was right in any situation. I think all wars are wrong.
Well, if you look at it, so just ask yourself, you think if you control the money and you control the media, you think things that go on that you don't approve of? Really?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like just because you see it all over the place. Just because you have the control doesn't mean you never lose. It doesn't mean nothing happens. That's like you brought up the Tsar of Russia being murdered. He had all of the control, did he not? And he was still murdered. Do you think he wanted that? No, he didn't.
Well, so Trotsky trained in New York. Jacob Schiff was one of the bankers that was instrumental in the foundation of the Federal Reserve and the NAACP. So you ask yourself, so the guy who started the Federal Reserve, who controls our money, why is he funding the NAACP? Do you think he really just cares about blacks out of the goodness of his heart? No, he doesn't. They're trying to use blacks against whites in a that's why, like, I mean, I was fortunate to have this conversation today, but that's because this university in this city is majority white. If I was in a city that was majority non-white, I'd be lynched. There's no way I could not say this stuff. And it's not racist. It's not like I dislike people. I'm not saying disrespect or harm or injure or kick anyone out of America. Everyone's welcome to stay here unless you're illegal. There's nothing unconstitutional about what I'm saying. But the founders were clear. This nation was created by whites for whites. And world history already shows. See, if you looked at the crime statistics and you saw 300 million whites have been violent crimes against them since 1965, and this is being hidden, you're like, you gotta be some kind of sadistic, wicked person to hide that information. No, not all black people are bad. Definitely, there are good black people. I mean, the gentleman that was around here earlier, I'm sure he's trying to do the best he can.
Jose.
Or Trey, was it Trey or Jose?
Oh, there was the one that was talking over here. He had like
The black gentleman, I think.
that was Trey. Jose was the one that was talking.
Are you guys all on the football team?
Oh, I'm a wrestler. Jose's a wrestler. Trey, I believe, is a football player.
Okay. So, yeah, there are very good people. It's not a slur. People are saying like this is inferior or superior. It's not about one race is superior. It's just the nations have boundaries for their races, and we have operated. If you look at all the objective statistics, welfare, crime, poverty, education, this technology means nothing. We're supposed to think that we're doing so good today. 500 years ago, men in feudal Europe, what's your name?
Oh, Gavin.
Gavin, I'm Ryan.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah. 500 years ago, Gavin, men in Europe worked 4 months out of the whole year to support a wife and 10 plus kids.
That was also before. That was more of a bartering system too.
Somewhat.
That was, I have this horse. You give me, how much?
This
That's
is my website too.
that was before. You can't barter today like you did barter then. Like that was, I have this wheat, you need wheat, you give me what I need. This wheat costs, this much money. I'm not saying that there wasn't a type of currency, but there was also more of a bartering system. I have money, I have wheat, I don't want your money because that doesn't do anything for me right now. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give you wheat, you're gonna give me milk from your cows, or you're gonna give me meat. So that's how they did that. You can't do that now because if you go up to someone and you say, I'm gonna give you 20 cows for your house, they're gonna look at you like you're fucking crazy, So you can't in a civilization that's mostly built on currency, you can't have something like that. Because currency runs out and you can't just go replenish it necessarily.
But is it
But you
fair
can with a work.
for one small group to control that currency? It's a private group right now. If it was so fair, why don't we know their names? Go to Google and they say, oh, it's not privately owned, which is a lie. It is privately owned. So it's not, and think about it, if you and a group of friends, if you could control the currency, you don't think that you would control it for your own best interest? Do you really think
That's capitalism. You control anything that you have, you control for your own gain.
But the capitalism is you work for your money, you earn your money, and you invest in other. They're not working for their money, they're printing money out and then charging us all for it with the income
And how do you
tax.
think they got into that position? They worked for their money, they got that money, then they bought it.
So, but the Federal Reserve right now, Gavin, has the ability to print out trillions, whatever they want.
They can't. They have to be ordered to do this. They can't just be like, I'm just gonna go print some bills because my daughter's got this car she wants.
Which they put the politicians and they control the media to order as much money as they want.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that's right because it's the government. The government is all sorts of fucked up. Sorry for my language.
But really, if it comes down to it, the problem here is if you get rid of the income tax, you get rid of the Federal Reserve.
The income tax actually was supposed to be, it was made to combat not combat prohibition. It was made to combat the tax that they were losing for prohibition, and it was made to be a temporary thing, but ended up as not being.
Yeah, it's not fair. I mean, the people who own the Federal Reserve, they don't work a day of their lives. We're sitting here, slaving our lives away, paying these people money who haven't done anything. And it's like, it is not fair that we work for people who do no work at all. That's just, it's not, the whole entire system, it's funny, we always hear about white exploitation and all this. We're all being exploited with the income tax. It's slavery right now. None of us voted for an income tax, and yet we're all paying an income tax. That's theft. And then we want to talk about this is how their whole divide and conquer. Oh, whites did. Oh, look at the whites did this. Oh, you let them do that. And while we're all fighting, they're stealing from all of us. It's beautiful.
That's why it shouldn't be a problem. Again, it shouldn't be this should be like this percent of whites or this percent of blacks. It should be everybody should just be like, hey, this isn't right. It's not that's what you're doing is saying America should be 9% white. That shouldn't be.
When the owners of the Federal Reserve, who we already know are a bunch of thieves and robbers, when they push people into America, when they lied, see, it's one thing if they advertise this, if they said in 1965 with the Hart-Celler Act, they're like, you know, America, we're gonna bring in non-whites into your country, and whites, you're gonna be a minority in your own country. Would you like that?
Whites are a minority.
We're about to be.
But we are.
We went from 90% to 57%. You don't think we're gonna be a minority?
And
We're on
that-
1940.
That's 57% white, but that's not 43% one other race. That's 43% black, that's 43% Asian, other Europeans, Africans. And with that white, would that include white South Africans?
Whites overall. Yeah, white South
Okay.
Africans would be included.
Because like there's issues with everybody. It's not, and I agree that there has been issues, and I think it's an educational issue. Because when blacks came out of slavery, it's because they weren't allowed to have an education. With Jim Crow laws, they were not allowed to get an education. So you think that someone who isn't allowed to get an education is going to be able to tell like, oh, like this is yours, I can't take that. They weren't taught that. What they were taught is, this is like, I came out of slavery. What they knew is this is the white man's property, and I was allowed to use certain amounts of this. I didn't know like this is his. I can't have this. He can't have, like, they weren't taught that. So how does someone come back from that? Like, how do you come back from being not allowed to learn and not allowed to learn these things?
Well, so Lincoln and the founders, they were very clear. They opposed slavery. When you read Lincoln's first inaugural address, his second, and a lot of his speeches, he opposed slavery very strongly, but he was on pace. If he hadn't have been killed, it would have been done. He had already planned. He was like, okay, when slavery's over, we're gonna put them on boats, we're gonna pay for them to go back to Africa, and that's because we can't live together. And he was far-seeing, because if you look and see what's happened since we've been together, they understood there was going to be problems. And it has been. When integration happened, there was leaders in the white and black community who both agreed that we can't live together. Yeah, there's respectable people among all races, but when you get us together, throughout human history, the races just don't operate well together. And if we're gonna be together, we're gonna have to have honesty, integrity, and accountability. And we do not have that. If I shouldn't have to be afraid of getting beat up if I discuss the black crime with someone who's black. We have a black crime problem. It needs to be fixed.
The only issues that I've ever had discussing racial issues like that was discussing with another white person. I've discussed this with black people and African
Here
people.
now. See, I grew up in California. Have you ever lived in a city where you're a minority?
I've been to plenty of cities where there's minorities, and I've had these conversations before.
I grew up, and I've got friends among all the races, but I grew up in a city where I was the minority. And so I saw very clearly that you understand very clearly there's situations and discussions you do not have, or you will get beat up. That's what happens. I was almost lynched in Vallejo because I went to a Black Lives Matter rally and held up a sign that said "All Lives Matter." I almost got lynched. That's what happens. And so you cannot civil discourse. Which non-white country recognizes that in history?
Israel.
No, they don't.
Civil discourse? No.
It's a white, and if you see like men, when something's wrong, an individual man standing up against tyranny, whites.
But again, like with the Black
I don't know
Lives
what to
Matter,
say.
that's a governmental issue. That's not a race issue. That's because these things are getting completely blown out of proportion because it's again, someone who is held down in these areas for such a long time, they're going to have bad feelings about this. Like, if I'm, it is true. It's true.
The Bible, the New Testament, you consider yourself a Christian.
Yes.
Okay.
Not a very good Christian. I'm not claiming to be some great Christian. I'm not very good, but I do know.
Well, the New Testament is very clear. Like, if your brother offends you, don't turn the other cheek, love your enemy, all this stuff. So the idea that you were mistreated by slavery, you were freed. The American people, 600,000 white people died to get you out of slavery, and that justifies you to commit murder, rape, and robbery.
So you've never done anything against anyone who's wronged you in your life.
Of course. I mean, I try to avoid, and I do believe in justice. So there's a big difference between a criminal and the death penalty. So I do believe in the death penalty. If you're a murderer, we shouldn't be supporting you. Like, you took a human, it's lex talionis, which Jesus believed in. An eye for an eye. That is what it is. That's what it is. And people say, oh, Jesus says no more eye for an eye. No, he said, don't murder. But he didn't end like the death penalty. You don't just.
The death penalty is murder, though.
No, it's not.
The act of murder is killing another human being.
No, because mercy to the guilty is.
Again, but that doesn't explain that. Like, literally, murder in the Bible is basically killing another human being. That is murder.
So the word that's used, there's different contexts. So there's one that's like unprovoked attack on someone who doesn't deserve it, and then there's another one that's like capital punishment or self-defense. It was not talking about the self-defense or the capital punishment. It was talking about when someone unprovoked just murders somebody for no good reason.
I don't believe in the death penalty.
Well,
just specifically for the reason of, obviously it's a human being, and I don't believe in it for some religious cause. I don't believe in it because you're gonna suffer more when you're alive than if I kill you. That's why I don't believe in it.
Conscience. How do you think they're gonna suffer?
They can't.
Serial murders like Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer. You think they're gonna suffer? They don't feel bad about killing people. They'll do it again when they get a chance.
It's because, okay, why do you think most serial killers go back to the scene of their crimes? Because they want to relive that and feel that validation. But if you stick them in a place where everybody hates them, nobody wants to talk to them, they can't get that. Which is their own kind of torture. And what's his name? The dude who killed the Virginia Six, I think it was. He went into the college kids' houses, killed them, and he's in.
Was he an Asian guy?
No, he's a white guy. What's
Spec. Something spec.
Shit. It's not going to my mind right now, but basically he broke into this house with a bunch of college kids. He killed 6 different people, and he's being held in incarceration right now. And what's happening? He has issues with these other inmates because they're yelling at him. They're saying these horrible things. He's basically said, I am suicidal. I want to die because of this. That is the torture. If he would have died, do you think he'd be dealing with that? No, he would not.
Well, the death penalty, the whole thing was, like, we got criminals running the street right now. They've been arrested like 40, 50 times, and they're still running the street committing murders, rapes, and violent crimes. That's appalling. Like, this compassion, compassion is towards, like, Jesus forgives the penitent. That's a word you never hear. That means someone who is so sorry that doesn't want to do it again. He does not forgive the person who's fully intent on going on and committing more crimes. That is not, we should not be showing mercy to that.
That's why single murderers don't get the death penalty.
Well, they should. Like, some of them do deserve the death penalty. Leo Frank.
They get life, not the death penalty.
No, Leo Frank in 1913, he raped and murdered a 13-year-old girl. He was lynched. I don't see anything wrong with that. You raped and murdered a 13-year-old girl. What is wrong with you? There's no, I don't, like, could he be a Christian and go to heaven? Sure. After he gets the death penalty, maybe he repented and went to heaven. I don't know. But you can't do that in our society and get away with it. You just.
No, that's.
And I mean, there's things like sins that people do, that are fairly commonplace, that I think should be handled more leniently, that don't affect injury to other people.
There's definitely those things.
But at the same time, you have to have strict, Teddy Roosevelt, he came here, he was very clear. He believed in the death penalty too. And all the way up until the past 40, 50 years, the death penalty was strongly believed in by Americans. It was only when our court system subverted it, letting violent criminals back out on the streets, which, by the way, is exactly what happened in Russia and China before their communist revolutions. It was mobs of violent criminals butchering people, which is what's about to come here. All these violent criminals, we shouldn't put them to death. They're going to be let out of jail. It happened in the French Revolution too. And they're going to start assaulting and murdering innocent people.
That's why you don't let them out. Like, someone who has committed multiple murders, you give them life in prison. You don't give them parole. You don't allow them to be free again.
So Myron Fagan is Jewish. He wrote a bunch of booklets, and they're very informative. And one of them, he said, everything from the French Revolution, all the revolutions since then, it's been the same group. And it's his group. He says, I'm a Jew. My fellow Jews have done this. I'm telling you guys this stuff. And he's not the only one. Ron Unz, Henry McCow. There's hundreds of Jews who are like, hey, our fellow Jews are doing this. You guys like need to listen up. This is what they're doing. This is what their Talmud says. The Inquisition, Torquemada was a Jew. He kind of told him, he was like, hey, this is the stuff inside of the Talmud that you guys need to be aware of. When you study the Talmud says that a woman is a whore and a prostitute if she's not a Jew. Is that loving? And yet that's what 90% of the people in Israel believe.
And
That's why they run Pornhub and OnlyFans. Rabbis own Pornhub and OnlyFans. Because if you're a woman and you're not a Jew, they're going to whore you out. They'll make money off of you.
And that is along the lines with, in the Bible, it basically says that a woman is her husband's servant. Do you believe that? Like, that a woman exists for nothing but to serve her husband?
It doesn't say she's her husband's. It says wives obey your husbands. It doesn't say she's her husband's servant.
In the Bible, there's many references about basically women not belonging to their husbands, but living to just serve their husband.
And it does say that women are created for the man, but
with-
is not created for the woman.
With what you brought up earlier, when women are allowed to vote, you said that ruined family dynamics. How did that ruin family dynamics?
So women, when they're in 1900, if a woman she didn't have welfare, there was no no fault divorce. So if a woman had a problem with the marriage, she was not allowed to just up and just end it. She had to actually stick around. So are there bad men? Sure. Should women stay in a abusive, that term is thrown around a lot, but should she stay in an abusive relationship? A lot of women claim they're being abused when they don't get what they want. Is that fair?
My question was, how did women being able to vote ruin family dynamics?
I'm going over it. It's a lot of aspects. That you have to cover.
Not women's rights or like the women divorcing people. I'm asking, how did women being able to vote ruin family dynamics?
So what it did, 1913, the men being able to provide was affected because the income tax and the Federal Reserve, which devalued money as well. So if a man can't provide for a wife and children, financial issues are at the root of a lot of dissension in families. So then women getting the right to vote effectively gave women a power and pushed them into voting in the workforce and away from the family. So our fertility rates have consistently dived to where they were like 3.8 in 1950, and now it's down to 1.7. So the correlation is women voting gave them, in the Bible, it's like women stay silent in the church. Do you agree with that?
No,
Why not?
because I think you should have, man or woman, I believe you should have just as much power as anybody else. That's another issue with equality, like with racial equality. It shouldn't be this person shouldn't be able to do this, or this person shouldn't be able to do that. It should be, I can do this, you can do this, we're good.
Do you know any woman who has read, that attends here, that on her own has read 10 history books?
Not that it attends here, but my girlfriend reads a lot. She's read multiple books on history. She's read the Bible cover to cover multiple times. And actually, she just got multiple books about history.
Are men attracted to women because they know history and their intellect, or is it because of how they look?
Oh, I love my girlfriend because of how smart she is. That's what drove me to her. Because she could whoop my ass in debate any day. That's why I love her, not because of how she looks.
When a woman's unattractive, do men generally pursue her for marriage?
I'm not exactly proud of
If a woman's unattractive, can you even have a baby with her? Let's even get down to
Yes,
the
I could.
I couldn't, because I couldn't function. If I'm not attracted, I just can't even have a
There's a
child.
difference in attractiveness, though. Like what you find attractive is not what I find attractive.
Sure, in the eyes of the beholder, that's true. But at the same time, it's like if you're I'm not trying to be offensive, but if you're 300 pounds, if you're that way before marriage, what are you going to be after a couple of children?
What about a guy? Do you think a guy who's 300 pounds, dumb as a box of rocks, you think he's gonna reproduce? No.
If I was a woman, I wouldn't be attracted to that.
Yeah, exactly.
But
So
I don't
that's
ask
not.
a woman to do something I'm not 300 pounds, so I don't expect someone I'm involved with to be 300 pounds.
Yeah. So that's not an issue with women being this way. It's an issue with everybody being this way.
Well, so it's an issue right now. Is that our society has encouraged female empowerment, which is basically whatever a woman's feelings dominate the public square. That's why, when I talk in public, we're like, oh, I can't listen to that. And it's like, okay, so women are generally more emotional. Every honest woman is going to acknowledge that. Men are more logical and reasonable. It's just there's no woman. Women do not study history because what are they going to get from it? Are they going to get a better husband because they know more history?
I know more females that know more history than I know men.
Yeah, I don't.
That's just a fact in my life. I know more
what's
women
going on you? Do
that
you
follow
study history? Do you read history books?
I've read a lot of history books.
Okay, so how many history books have you read the last year?
In the last year, I haven't been reading as much, mostly because of school and work.
Because like to a man who diligently so I've never owned a television, so that's why I sound a little bit different. I don't like watch movies. If you stay away from common things in your society, social media, I'm banned. So I'm gonna have a different perspective. I read books from the past, and it's like when we have different information sources, we're gonna have different opinions. So if everyone's on what do you think social media was about? Social media was about crowd control. If everybody's exposed to social media and some of us are banned from social media, like you're gonna be like, oh, that guy's a crazy conspiracy theorist. I already heard. And it's like you're gonna think what you've been conditioned to think. I'm not on Facebook and Dickinson because I'm banned. Had I been on Facebook and Dickinson, I don't know who's gonna take the debate.
And so with social media, I think that's completely wrong, because with books in Germany before, like with the Holocaust, they burned books, correct? All of them. They burned
pornography and transgender.
They burned all kinds of books.
No, it was mostly perversion, mostly.
Well, again, it's books.
And you're talking about banning books.
And
your university right here bans books. I got 1,000 books on my website.
I'm not saying they don't. Again, books can be banned, and it's a lot harder to ban something on the internet, because you know how many things that I personally have that have been banned or aren't allowed to be had, and they can ban it, but this person's gonna have it before it's banned. This person can have a screenshot before it's banned. That person can have a screenshot before it's banned. But if you ban books and don't allow them to come out, it is so much harder for that to spread.
So I agree with that, but see, the whole thing right now, this whole banning books and everybody needs free access to books.
You shouldn't be banning books. I don't believe in that.
Yeah, but the thing is, you shouldn't allow perversion in your libraries either.
No.
So before 1960, pornography, homosexuality, that stuff was illegal. It should still be illegal. I have no problem with banning all that stuff from it shouldn't even be on the internet. Nobody should even have access to it.
But that's human nature, basically. They're
No.
It is, because as a human, you're going to search out what pleases you and what gives you euphoria,
So,
which is a lot of times carnal desires.
That's what we're told as a Christian. Christians are not told to do that. You're told to deny
No, you're
your
told
flesh.
against it, but it's told that it is human nature. You're
Well,
not told to do it, but it will happen.
When America knew history and the Bible, they banned pornography. Our biblical and historical literacy right now is at all-time lows, and that's why people are conned into thinking, oh, we need to allow this. The argument is, oh, if we ban pornography, people are still gonna get into it.
They will.
We ban murder, people still murder. Does that mean we should legalize murder?
No, porn isn't something that genuinely affects, like, murder and porn are two completely different subjects. Murder, you're killing a person. Porn,
You're killing your soul.
no, you're not, though.
You are.
No, because I know plenty of people who've used porn, and they're still like some of the greatest people I know.
So pornography is it's a crime against the soul. It's a grave sin. According to the Catholic Church, it's a grave sin, and I agree. So the other thing is that Jesus says, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." So a lot of these differences I'm having with people, if you don't live a pure life, you can't see the truth. If you don't deny yourself sex and drugs, there's certain truths you're just flat out not even going to comprehend. I don't want to use the word dumb or stupid, but sin does make a person dumb and stupid. That's why you're told to avoid it, so you could actually see clearly. You can't see clearly if your mind is confused by sin. You're not thinking clearly.
So, like what you brought up earlier with the death penalty, you said someone who you killed a person once, you can still get into heaven. So why should I believe that I shouldn't be doing these things, if I'm gonna be able to get into heaven anyway?
Well, so that we before you came, we talked about it. It's called the antinomian heresy, and that is basically people who think that I just sin and I'm gonna, like, if I die drunk, I'm gonna go to heaven. If I die drunk, I'm gonna go straight to hell. If you die in a certain sin and you did not repent, you're not going to heaven. You're gonna go to hell.
You said your example. You said after he died, he repented. So he still died in that sin.
That I said gives the death penalty to. Yeah. So in that case,
He still died in that sin. So why would he go to heaven?
So like David's a perfect example. David committed adultery and murdered, but he repented. God gave him the grace and the time to repent.
Yes, but what you said is if you die in a sin, you will go to hell, correct? Before you repent. But earlier